Welcome back to the 2024 F1 Sim Racing World Championship. We are back and we are ready for more action. It's day 2 of event 2, and yesterday we kicked things off with drama and excitement. We visited Jeddah for the first time, where Freddie Rasmussen converted pole to victory, and then we returned to Spielberg and crowned Alfie Butcher with his first ever win. If yesterday was anything to go by, then you do not want to miss 1 second of today's action. I'm Mariana Bravo. Alongside me is Hayden Gullis and George Morgan. Guys, we're back. Day 2, we're ready. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling great. Yesterday was amazing. We had some incredible action out on track. We had a little bit of controversy, which we're going to be discussing later on in the show. And I'm sure we're going to get plenty of that later on today.
I think we will. George, how are you feeling for day 2?
Yeah, it was a busy one, I think, yesterday, to say the very least. The amount of scraps I think we witnessed out on track. We witnessed certainly a real fight at Jeddah, a mixture of strategies. I would say, actually, the strategical element was probably one of the features, I think, of yesterday's racing. We could see something entirely different today.
Absolutely. Let's dig into what we saw yesterday, shall we? As you mentioned, lots of drama, lots of chaos. We've got some highlights to look through here. As I mentioned, Freddie starting on pole and just kind of under control for the whole thing, right?
Yeah, led from there, and I think it was a very dominant performance from Freddie Rasmussen. Led from the front. There was a bit of battling going on behind, but it really sort of helped him further down the field as they were too busy scrapping for P2. It allowed him to break away, get away from that 1 second DRS activation, and of course that allowed him to break away. We've had some really great battles around Jeddah. I think a great track for us to go racing in F1 Sim Racing.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think it was certainly a test of strength as well. It was a bit of misfortune as well for some of the drivers coming through the pits. I think Alfie Butcher was hoping for more as well alike, but Lucas Blakely also suffering to a certain degree. He was fighting his way through the field. Barry Burman sustaining damage, holding up some of those runners. Wilson Hughes eventually tussling his way through the field. Of course, we saw almost vintage Donoso as well, but this was one of the main stories as well. Alfie Butcher at Jeddah, it just kind of slipped through his fingers. Yesterday, Jeddah actually was his best chance, in my view, of a race victory.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, we saw racing all down the pack, as we've seen 3-4 wide at some points. Places where we weren't expecting to see people going quite so daring, but everything was left out. But ultimately, it was Freddie Rasmussen, of course, who came home with the victory. Fantastic performance from Ismail Farsi for the whole day as well, worth mentioning.
Yeah, I think there's no doubt that he was driving the day for yesterday. 2 podiums. First one here, of course, with a photo finish down to the line in Jeddah, just about pipped Lucas Blakely on the run down to the line. Did a different strategy to everybody else. Used those soft tyres at the end, and now this is a look back at what happened yesterday in Spielberg. A bit more of a controversial race, but Jarno Ottmar not getting off to the greatest of starts. He kind of got a little bit pinned on the inside, and that backed him down slightly. But everybody was kind of a bit more well-behaved than we were expecting, I think, around these circuits.
Yeah, I mean, we spoke about the differences between Jeddah and Red Bull Ring. Of course, 2 vastly different tracks in terms of length, but track limits certainly are the issue. Fasti once again impressing. He goes for moves that probably most drivers wouldn't dare go for, and I think that's what makes him truly special. He's got the racecraft. Alfie Butcher, though, one of the stories of the day, I think, coming off the back of the disappointment at Saudi, where he didn't expect much coming into this race, but yet was able to utilise the VSC to his advantage. And I must say, the team play at Haas, IQ level 1,000. Yeah,
it was brilliant to see. You mentioned the VSC there. It's something that we're going to dig into a little bit more. Controversial. We've had some quite outspoken drivers saying how they feel about it. What did you guys make of it now that you've had a chance to speak to the drivers yourselves as well?
I understand the decision. It is in the rule book that if a driver does get disconnected or out of no fault of their own, the virtual safety car is deployed. It's supposed to neutralise the whole field so that they can get back into the race and they don't lose any positions. Now, it's all done in good intent. There's a good intent behind it, and I completely understand it. I think the problems rely in the time it took for the virtual safety car to come out. It came out far too late, so it didn't really help Lucas Blakely in the end. His race was done, and then it disadvantaged some drivers and gave advantage to others. So there needs to be a look into the rule book and a way to kind of make it a bit safer in the sense of, maybe we don't allow drivers to box on the virtual safety car, and it needs to happen immediately. As soon as Lucas is out of the race, or any driver that happens to, it needs to come out straight away, neutralises the whole field, nobody's allowed to box, and then we get back racing when they're back in the lobby.
Okay, well, we're going to talk a little bit more about that soon, but just quickly whiz us through these driver standings that we're seeing up on the screen to get us ready for today.
Yeah, so Thomas Ronhaar is still leading the championship. 63 points ahead of Freddie Rasmussen, who's on 42. Fassi, driver of the day, fantastic performance, has put himself into P3, 34. And Alfie Butcher with his first race win on 27 points in P4. The reigning champion, Lucas Blakely, down in P10. Not a good day for him. He did have a solid first race, but sadly the second one falling away out of his grip. Brendan Lee, sadly, still with no points. And looking further down the field, it's not been a good occasion for Alpine Esports. Both of them qualified at the bottom of both the races, so they'll be hoping to go further up the field later today.
And the constructor standings?
Yeah, and the drivers' performance is obviously reflecting in the constructors as you'd expect. Kick F1 Sim Racing still going strong. However, Thomas Ronhaar, after 2 stellar performances through the course of Event 2 so far, now 63. Have got a little bit of a gap to Mercedes in second, despite Jana Wattmann's issues at Austria. Jake Benham still stepping up and providing further points. Oracle Red Bull Sim Racing as well, looking very strong after Freddie's victory. But then, not only that, Williams now started to fly up the table. 2 podiums for Ismail Fassi.
Yeah.
And what that win has done for Haas, they've now elevated themselves further up after Alfie Butcher's sensational show.
And on that note, Alfie Butcher's sensational show, let's hear a little bit from the man himself. We caught up with him yesterday.
After an action-packed Jeddah Corniche circuit, after the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix here in the Formula One Sim Racing World Championship, we set sail for Spielberg, set in the heart of the Styrian Mountains for round 3 of this illustrious championship. We have already witnessed drama. We're about to witness some more. Thomas Ronhaar winning it last season. Can he take it back? We'll soon find out. All 5 lights are lit. And it's pedal to the metal. And it is go, 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 go. Thomas Ronhaar gets the way well, so does Barry Furman, but slots in behind him heading in towards turn 1.
After the VSC, I know that I couldn't do anything because of my position. I was 5 seconds behind Thomas.
Turn 4, lighting up here for Alfie Butcher, who lands the carving knife down upon the 2 cars behind him.
And I just wanted to help my teammate, and I saw he was in provisional P1. And I just let him go, and it was in the sector 2. He just passed me before the sector 2.
What if he is potentially waiting for Alfie Butcher to overtake him? Once he's got past, then he holds up the rest of the field to break that 1 second gap. Alfie Butcher runs away, takes the race win.
Yeah, absolutely. Seems like a very well thought out plan there, Hayden. It's almost like you thought of it and told them to do it.
Well, you know, they've done it. They're doing it. They've switched positions.
Incredible stuff. Certainly Alfie Butcher out in front here. Ulas Ozyildirim just in behind. Of course, Butcher now ahead of Ozyildirim. Your theory is correct. And now Ozyildirim has got to try and back the field up, if that is indeed the plan here, Hayden.
Yeah, but it's going to be very difficult. He's on very old hard tyres compared to the rest of the field. But even if it's just for a couple of corners, use all of the battery, burn it all. And he is there. He's got 60% just to stay ahead and then slow them down through the corners.
I could slow down the pack as much as I want if I place the car correctly. And I think I did a good job there.
Look, Alfie Butcher flying. 1.7, 1.8 is the gap. Now we've got Barry Burman around the outside into the penultimate corner. Ulas is on the inside, and he's still defending position. He's holding them up.
I did a clean and solid job. The gap was like 3 seconds after that, and he could cruise to the finish.
Butcher still leads the way and has done so brilliantly. What a turnaround. Started 13th on the grid heading into this race.
It was a really eventful race. Qualifying didn't go so well in our favour.
Round 10 they go, wheel to wheel, they make contact, but it's Alfie Butcher, the Challengers champion, a debut victory here for the young man. Incredible, what a performance.
Going into this race, we knew we could make something work, get some strong points, and that's just what we did. We capitalised on a VSC. Thanks to Ulas, helped me bring it home and made it a bit more comfortable for me.
He's done it! An incredible victory!
What a drive, though, for Alfie Butcher. A fantastic performance today.
Teamwork makes the dream work, and that's exactly what we saw yesterday from the Haas boys. Now, as I mentioned, controversy yesterday and lots of opinions and discussions about that VSC. We are going to now introduce for today Claire Cottingham, who of course was with us all of yesterday, and she is currently with Joel Chapman, team manager of McLaren Shadow, to discuss yesterday's events a little bit more. Claire.
Yes, indeed, Ariana. Joel, we say controversy, but actually it was a sort of thing in the game that affected your driver, Lucas Blakely. Could you just explain exactly what happened?
Yes, so Lucas unfortunately experienced his game essentially crashing mid-race, which is unfortunate. It's not the first time it's happened in esports, and I'm sure it won't be the last time. The way I kind of phrase it to the guys is these things happen in motorsports and esports in general. It's how we kind of react and respond to it. So whilst it affected our race, Lucas has come back in this morning feeling great, feeling confident and ready to go again. Yeah,
tell me how he's feeling. It's his home Grand Prix. He must be buzzed.
Yes, he loves Silverstone. He's super confident around this circuit. He's come in this morning. We're given an opportunity to test some kind of components that have been swapped out since yesterday. So he's totally confident that he's ready to go again and deliver a good race.
Were there conversations that you kind of had to have with Lucas about obviously why this happened? I know he understands it, but just go, look, hey, sometimes this happens. Real racing is exactly the same. Sometimes things happen. It's out of your control. You just got to get on.
Yeah, I mean, we do a bit of a sort of investigative process where we look at what happened and why it may have happened. We work with the admins and the team on the ground, and they've been great in swapping parts and swapping out a new PC. So we're confident that hopefully it won't happen again. And yeah, in terms of how we manage Lucas, we just say these things happen. He's spent enough time in motorsport and in this environment to know that these things happen, and he'll go again and deliver with a fresh head today.
And for anyone who's new to esports, welcome. We love to have you here. Can you just explain how hard was it to get Lucas back into the game?
In the moment, it was difficult. I mean, yeah, the game crashes. You have to bring him back in as quickly as possible. Obviously, there was a VSC deployed, which slowed the entire race down, but there wasn't enough time for him to kind of jump back in and then move back through the field. So essentially, it effectively ended his race, which was unfortunate. But yeah, we'll move on and we'll deal with it and deliver some good results today.
Well, good luck. Home Grand Prix for a lot of you. Ariana.
Thank you very much. Lovely to hear from Claire and Joel there. Now, let's talk a little bit about what is coming up today. I'm very excited. Two of the most iconic tracks in Formula One, Silverstone and Spa. I'm excited. They're both incredible.
Two iconic tracks, as you say, in Formula One, and great places to go racing. They're fast-flowing corners. Let's talk firstly about Silverstone. It's all pretty much high speed. There's not many big braking zones around here, which means there's not that many potential places to have a little look up the inside, but we're going to see these drivers really close and potentially even some battling through Maggots, Beckett's and in towards Copse Corner at the start. I think this is a great place to go racing. I'm really excited for it.
I absolutely can't wait. And what about Spa? That one is something special, isn't it?
It certainly is, and certainly one of the most attractive circuits on the calendar, given where it's set in the Forest of Stavelot, of course, and with various different elevation changes too. When you come out of the La Source at Turn 1, you've then got the trip up through towards Eau Rouge and Raidillon, the steep descent, which doesn't look overly steep on the game, but I can assure you, I've stood at that portion of track, and it is like that. Honestly, ridiculous. Les Combes, very tricky. The middle sector as well can really catch you out. The final sector is more about straight line speed. Of course, at the same time, you've got the very fast Blanchimont corner before you then reach the heavy braking zone at bus stop. But I tell you what, it's what you do at Corbeil-Port-Frère, Campus and Stavelot, as well as the La Fanier chicane. So many peaks and troughs at this circuit, and it takes a great driver to win it. But I can tell you one driver who has won it twice back-to-back in the last 2 years. That's Freddie Rasmussen.
Freddie Rasmussen. Well, today we're going to have both qualifying sessions. So we have Quali 1, Quali 2 for each of those races. Then we take a little break and we come back for the races later today. So we're providing you action all through today, so make sure you stick around with us. And what are they all doing this for? Well, we have a very nice prize pool up for grabs, $750,000 that the drivers are competing for. Must be very, very nice. But of course, they've got to survive all of these races before they can think about getting their hands on it. Let's run through how the points work for this. Very similar to F1. Points awarded for the top 10 positions, starting at 25, going all the way down to 1 point in 10th place. Fastest lap awards you 1 point, provided you are finishing in the top 10. And then, unlike Formula One, we have 1 point also awarded for pole position, which is crucial because every point matters in F1 sim racing. It really does. I mean, it matters in F1 anyway, but it is very precious. We've seen in the standings that we've just run through how close things are. So Yeah, let's see how it goes when we get to qualifying. Let's also talk you through the event schedule. Day 1, Wednesday, done and dusted. Jeddah and Spielberg, we are through. Today, as I mentioned, we visit 2 of the most classic tracks, Silverstone and Spa, qualifying first up, and then we will return from 5 p.m. for the races. And then when we look ahead to tomorrow, we visit Zandvoort and Austin. Same setup as yesterday and today, qualifying at midday, then back at 5 p.m. to get ready for the races. Jam-packed, exciting, lots to come. I cannot wait to see how it all unfolds. First up, we have qualifying at Silverstone, and that's my cue to hand it over to you guys.
Thank you very much, Ariana. Looking ahead now to qualifying, we've got a very exciting feast of action, of course, Hayden. Silverstone, the Earl Grey of world motorsport. I personally can't wait for this one. 1948, when this circuit was, of course, built and put together. Of course, formerly an airfield and now a racetrack. One of the most iconic ones on the calendar. Many, without a doubt, I'm sure quite rightly so, call this the birthplace of Formula One.
Yeah, and what a lap to watch in qualifying as well. Watching an onboard around here, it's just so fast and flowing, and you've got to really just be on the limit through every single corner. And there are corners that flow in between each other as well. You're talking about Maggots, Beckett's, Chapel. Get one of those wrong, and you get the whole section wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. Here's the track map. We'll take you through it. 5.891 kilometers. That's 3.661 miles. Capacity of 160,000 people around this circuit. And of course, like I said, 1948 is when it opened up. 18 corners for the drivers to take themselves through, and only 2 DRS detection points where the drivers can open up the rear wing. One of them making their way down in towards the through the Wellington Straight, through towards Luffield and Brooklands. And then not forgetting, just after Maggots and Beckett's, you've got the trip down the Hanger Straight where you can utilize the DRS detection point to open up your rear wing. Both straights pretty much offer the feasts of overtaking that we're used to.
Yeah, definitely. But they're unique to this circuit, the end of that DRS zone, because usually you have a DRS zone and then it goes straight into a heavy braking point to kind of set up the move. So the DRS allows you to get kind of like side by side, and then you've got to get it done under the braking. Whereas around Silverstone, both of them are very fast corners. You've really got to chuck it in through, first of all, through Brooklands, and then later on through Stowe. It's not just a case of on the brakes, right-hander, off we go, or a hairpin. It's throw the car in, full commitment, potentially going to oversteer, or understeer, sorry, and knock your rival off if you run out wide. So you have to be really, really cautious with overtaking. Obviously, we're not going to be getting much overtaking right now. That's going to be later on in the race show tonight. But yeah, I'm really thoroughly excited to see who can put it up at the top in pole. And there's Alfie Butcher, very strong in qualifying. He's shown that so far this season. I think yesterday in Austria was just a little bit of a blip. Not a great qualifying, but it seems like it didn't matter because 13th on the grid was able to still come back and take the race win. And we've also seen that, it doesn't necessarily mean if you've got pole position that you might not get the race win, because we've seen how close they are at the front. Alfie Butcher, of course, winning and not on pole position just goes to show how important that pole position point is. Yeah,
it could mean everything, and to certain drivers it could mean more. And just to amplify that fact, we caught up with Simon Weigang.
So we are here with Simon Weigang, the man with a tash, who actually made it yesterday. Tell me the story. You was in your hotel room and then you decided that, do you know what, I want to be in a Netflix documentary.
Correct. I was pondering about how it would look if I put it on pole with a full beard. And I thought it's going to be great, but if I put it on P20 with a full beard, I'd look like a homeless guy. So I thought the stash is a good middle ground there.
So we're heading off to Silverstone next up. Actually, the home track really for Simon. He's been training half a kilometre away from the circuit entry. So how are you feeling? You should know the track like the back of your hand now.
Yeah, that's true. Not many corners nowadays. Lots of it is flat out with the new cars, and very confident. It is kind of a second home track by now, yeah.
A main point for later today, I'm expecting you, lap 1, Maggots and Beckett's, if you even lift the throttle, I'm going to be disappointed in you.
Oh no, I won't lift.
100% throttle, this is the only way, and if you see Simon spinning out of the race, you can blame me for this one.
And the mustache.
And the mustache. And the mustache, of course.
Yeah. All right, Brendan, so with Spa coming up, the roller coaster in the Ardennes or whatever it's called, how do you feel about it?
Honestly, I feel really great. On the straight, I can have a cup of tea, I can have a biscuit, relaxed, and the middle sector is so fast-flowing, dynamic, and difficult that it's going to be a bit of a challenge. But then the final sector, we have a nice long straight for a cup of tea again.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, Truly an interesting segment there. Brendan Lee putting his reporting skills to the test, but it has to be said, Simon Weigang, no stranger to F1 esports. He's been around now for a good number of years. And looking back, I remember when he got drafted to Renault, then took a trip to Haas, has now since arrived at Aston Martin alongside John Evans, who is effectively a new rookie. Only had 7 starts last season and now returning here this time this campaign. So Simon Weigang, the experienced head, trying to help John Evans along. Aston Martin, though, off the back of Donoso's single point yesterday at Jeddah. Good performance to a degree, because Aston Martin haven't had it all their own way. Yeah,
it looked like a very great performance there from Fabrizio Donoso. But for these other 2 Aston Martin drivers, they're going to want to get them off to the start and getting some points on the board. I really love that piece, just watching those 2 chat with each other. And that's kind of the vibe that we get in this studio right now as we look behind. Qualifying has begun, and it looks like it's wet out on track. We're going to get a wet qualifying here in Silverstone, and it's weird now to see Jarno Opmeer, who's on soft tyres, despite it being a wet track. And I guess it's the opposite way to when we have dry qualifying running, and those guys are on intermediate tyres. They're now just testing the setup. Like we said yesterday when they were on the inters, Jarno's just on the softs right now, testing the setup. But we spoke yesterday with Fabrizio Donoso just to get a clarification of why they do this. He said fully it's just to test the systems and make sure everything's working fine, but they also like to have a delta just to kind of make sure that they're always positive and in the green. It kind of gives them a little bit of confidence going into that first flying lap.
Yeah, it's amazing what that can do for you. If you can see that green lit up in the top right-hand corner, it means that obviously you are improving and you have that bout of confidence to help you out through the remainder of the session. Jarno Opmeer out on track. Tom Manley joining him, as is Freddie Rasmussen. Thomas Ronhaar also out on track, as is Josh Edo. Brendan Lee heading out, as well as Jed Norgrove, though many of them donning the wet tyres. So is this conditions getting worse, Hayden?
Not too sure. We'll have to wait and see when the lap times start coming in, because potentially they could be, you know, Jarno's going on the soft tyres clearly, but maybe the guys that are on the wet tyres are saving the intermediate tyres for later on. Yeah. So we'll just have to wait and see how the weather's going to play out later on in this session. But at the moment, we can definitely say, for one thing, it is raining. It did come up on screen earlier. We did have the weather conditions pop up. It did say light rain, so potentially it is intermediate conditions at the moment. And the inters actually work really well for quite a large majority of the wet period. Compare that to the previous game where there was a later or an earlier crossover phase between the inters and the wets. This year's game, it's a bit later.
Yeah, Jarno Opmeer now coming straight into the pits immediately on the soft tyres. Now you'll look to bail off those as more and more cars head out onto the wet. Simon Weigang still in the pits, as is his Aston Martin teammate John Evans. Philip Prejnader, got a chance to speak with him. Of course, coming into the rig, very last minute, was a late replacement for Luke Smith. Hasn't really had a lot of time to prepare, Hayden, so and he's not alone, because of course we do have a ripe debutant by the name of Will Lewis joining the Williams fold. I spoke to him now, making his first start for the Williams esports team. A very important day, but as we've seen since the start of this campaign, it's been a good season for the rookies so far.
Yeah, it certainly has. And, you know, the young dogs coming in, you know, just sort of pushing out the old furniture. But Will Lewis, he's had to squeeze into Alvaro Caraton's. He's a very tall driver, so he's had to squeeze into his seat. But Alvaro Caraton, unfortunately, not well today, so we wish him all the best and hope to see him back in a rig as soon as possible. But yes, it'd be interesting to see how those two perform. Obviously, Ismail Fassi, driver of the day yesterday. So we're watching on board now Freddie Rasmussen, who's on the wet tyres. And looking at the rain outside, it doesn't look like it's those full wet conditions.
No, it doesn't.
It does very much look like it is intermediate conditions out on track at the moment. And be interesting to see what the weather's doing later on through the qualifying session, whether it's going to dry up maybe at the end of Q1 or Q2. And then those guys, it's all about who is the last to cross the line and start their flying lap.
Yeah, again, looking for this delta. Freddie Rasmussen utilising the wet tyres. It's a great chance for us to check out Maggots and Beckett's as well. This, again, is a very sensitive portion of track, especially in qualifying where track limits are imperative. There won't be necessarily any DRS for the drivers to worry about here at this point, because the wet conditions obviously substantial enough to avoid the use of DRS, but you never know. If we're in changeable conditions, Hayden, we could very easily see DRS become reapplied towards the very end of Q1.
Yeah, and that really is your indicator. If you have DRS enabled come up on your screen, you then know it's time to go onto soft tyres and get out on the dries. Doesn't look like that's going to be happening anytime soon, because it's definitely rain is out. There's a yellow flag in Sector 3, which looks like, on the mini-map, that looks like a Alpha Tauri car, whether they were just possibly getting out of the way there for the kick. Going into the final sector. But watching on board now with Thomas Ronhaar, who again is letting another drive through. Brendan Lee sets our first lap time on the board, a 1:35.3 on the wet tyres. Not too sure it's going to be as representative just yet, as it is currently still, yes, light rain conditions, and I'm sure we're going to be getting some faster times on intermediates later on in this first session.
Yeah, very busy track already. Quite a few cars bunched up at the loop as well, about to take the Long Wellington Straight. Danny Berejne on the rails near enough, marking his return to F1 sim racing competition. Of course, didn't step up yesterday, of course. It was Jake Benham who was in the seat, but now it's the turn of Berejne. I was with the teams here in the arena as they were swapping the brake pedals as well for the two drivers. They have to adjust the seat because, of course, it was set to Jake Benham settings prior, and we all know how tall Danny Berejne is. They've had to put it back to the max, that seat. But also of note, which I found interesting, prefers a more GT3 style seat raise as opposed to the typical Formula 1 that Jarno likes to adopt. You know, it's almost opposite tracks, really.
Yeah, you can see when they're right next to each other and they're sat in those rigs, that you can see that, you know, Danny Berejne is more upright, Jarno Opmer is more kind of in that, Formula driving seat position. I believe it's because Danny is such a tall guy that in the Formula position, you're lower down, therefore your legs extend further to where the pedals are, and as Danny is tall, he has to sit more upright to then have that leg room so his knees aren't basically inside the monitor at that point.
Yeah, we know the physicality that Danny Berejne likes to put in place with the application of the brake pedal. Of course, I'd imagine he goes through numerous amounts of them without any shadow of a doubt, as we now see him make his way out of Maggots and Beckett's. This is going to be a very interesting qualifying session. It's a job to know, really, where the pace is going to be, because, you know, wet weather likes to throw a curveball, Hayden, and this is where, you know, the aptitude of a certain driver, the versatility of a driver is tested.
Yeah, we've got a few drivers on intermediates. Looks like Tom Manley is going to be potentially our first driver on the intermediates to maybe see what a representative lap time will be from these guys. But it's interesting to note that we know it's not going to get wetter in this session, because if it was, everybody would be straight away on the intermediate setting the quickest lap time they could before that wet weather hits. And then they're kind of like screwed for later on in the session. But Tom Manley on the intermediates, he's going to be setting our fast lap time. It's a very slow lap, it looks like, compared to how you would usually see these cars flying around on the soft tyres. But out of the loop, onto the Wellington Straight. No DRS, of course, as we are in wet conditions. And then it's going to be a dab of brake as they head through Brooklands. As you can see, not quite full brake, just a bit of a dab coming off it, because if you go too much, you're going to lock up. It's very easy to do that in these conditions. Through Luffield now, being off the corner to really maximise the exit now down the old start-finish straight. And then set yourself up for the absolute flyer that is Copse Corner. In dry conditions, completely flat out, but it's going to be a little bit of a break, a little lift through the corner. He gets it right on the white line, no invalidation, so he's going to be nice and comfortable through there. Now in towards Maggots and Beckett's, through the left, then the right, and we're going to now look over to Lucas Blakely, our reigning champion. Good day to start off with yesterday. Unfortunately, then the game crashing took him out of the second race in Austria. He'll be looking to bounce back today, but he has made Q3 in every round since the beginning of the 2021 season, which is a run of 27 consecutive rounds. Very good stat, that. Some
record, certainly to say the least. Lucas Blakely now hurtling down the Hanger Straight. Thomas Ronhaar, like we've seen prior, setting that 1:35.285 here at this stage. Danny Berejne still currently sat in second. We will be seeing the intermediate tyres make a name for themselves. Tom Manley, of course, who definitely looked like he was showing some massive improvement as we now come back to him this time around. Makes his way across the line. Only enough for 6th fastest, though.
Okay, must have made a mistake.
Those on the wets ahead. So it might have been a mistake somewhere along the line, but then again, he stays out on track. Looks like he's still going full beans. Bear in mind, Tom Manley, a former F1 Esports Challengers Xbox champion.
Yeah, must have made some sort of mistake. It looks like he's backed off because he's going again for another lap. And I suppose in these intermediate conditions, just in case there is any variation between the different laps, you want to get a couple in. You want to fuel up a little bit more than just going for one flying lap. So you can just do a couple just in case, it might dry up a little bit here or get a little bit wetter there. So you just have to be on it at the right time. As we've got top of the board, Patrick Schipos and Philip Presneda. So the Alpine boys, they were bottom yesterday. Now at the top, they'll be hoping that the session is red flagged right now and it's over and we can go into the next qualifying session.
I heard the word stop the count over at Alpine somewhere, but there we have it. Patrick Schipos up at the top, setting a very decent time. 0.3 faster than his teammate Philip Presneda, a 1:32.982 as we now ride on board here with Jarno Opmer. He has now gone straight back onto the intermediate tyre, which definitely seems like the popular tyre and what we believe to be the correct tyre to be on, considering the conditions we have here at Silverstone. Freddie Rasmussen also out on track. We're going to be seeing a flurry of cars now making their way towards the start-finish line. This is a very sensitive point of Q1. As you can see, very busy at Club Corner. And look at this, we've got an AlphaTauri sprinting into the mix of it too. So Jarno's got company just in behind. So they're all fighting over clean air. And it's a very fraught time as well, because Tom Manley's just gone to the top now with a 1:32.910. They've got to leave everything now out on the track here, Hayden. It's now or never to get into Q2.
Yeah, it certainly is crunch time right now. No need to put on the wet tyres and just get the testing going on. This is all about who can get themselves into Q2 now. Riding on board with Jarno Opmeer, two-time F1 sim racing champion, as Jed Norgrove now puts himself at the top. We have 2 Alpines, now we have 2 AlphaTauris, but can the Mercedes topple that? Through Brooklands, a little bit wide of the apex, would probably run a little bit more over the inside curve there, but nice and tidy through Luffield from Jarno Opmeer. Really squares off the later apex to maximise your straight line speed down the old start-finish straight, the international start-finish straight. Then heading into Copse Corner, get the car over to the left, use a little bit of curbing on the outside, throw the car in and hope that it grips up. Make sure you don't extend on the outside. Could probably use a little bit more of the track on the outside of that corner, and then in towards Brooklands, in towards Maggots and Beckett's, through the left, then the right, then the left again, then really hook it over as you go through Chapel, back on the throttle, use the curb on the left-hand side, keep it nice and tight, and then head down the hangar straight as you get yourself set up for the next section of corners, which of course is Stowe, Club and Vale at the end of the lap. Nicholas Longay currently putting it on the top of the board, Alfie Butcher as well, Jarno Opmeer through Stowe, little bit of a tank slapper as he slides through Stowe, hard on the brakes now in towards Club, and then get back on the throttle as you really open up this corner. But you have to be tentative, you can't just go flat out because the car wants to step away from you as the whole time you get through there, across the line, and it's good enough for P8 for the time being for Jarno Opmeer. Not sure that's safe, as that is 0.4 of a second off of Nicholas Longay, but he might be going again. As I said, these drivers have put potentially a bit more fuel in the car to go for quite a few laps. Yeah,
Jarno's last win coming off the race at Texas last season. Danny Berejnay now making his way around the final corner as well. Goes third fastest. Welcome back, Danny Berejnay, the Hungarian sensation, a 1:32.343 and 400th off Alfie Butcher, who sits in second place. So it's all starting to close up at the front end. Here comes Thomas Ronhaar, who's about to get started on his flying lap on intermediate tyres.
Yeah, here we go. Thomas Ronhaar, yesterday pole sitter at the Austrian Grand Prix. Let's see if he can do it again here at Silverstone. Nicholas Longay, though, currently holds the mantle at the top, but it is only Q1, so let's not worry too much about who's going to be taking that point. It's all about the bottom of the order, and Thomas Ronhaar right now is in that bottom 5, so he's going to want to put himself up at the top to try and be safe from that. But I'm not too sure whether we're going to see drivers setting a lap time and then retiring just in case the track dries up ever so slightly. Even if it's just a tenth faster, that can gain you so many positions here in F1 sim racing. Through Brooklands and Luffield there, then back on the power. Tighter line from Thomas Ronhaar compared to Jarno Opmeer, who really kind of V'd off that corner. Back on the throttle, down the old start-finish straight as we head in towards Copse Corner now. Let's watch the EOS as it's just dropping all the way through this lap at the moment. You can see it on the steering wheel of Thomas Ronhaar there. He's currently set on 56, 57 seconds as we go through the Maggots and Beckett's section through the left and then the right. Sets up the car nicely. Don't want to go too wide out here because you can get on the grass, you're going to unsettle the car and you just lose a heap amount of time, as he's 1.9 seconds up on his previous lap time at the moment. That would be enough to put him in the 33s right now, so he's going to need a little bit more time to find. I'm sure he's going to find that through this last section, though, because I believe that last time was set on wet tyres. So through Club, then through Vale, back on the throttle. Just be tentative with it, though. You don't want the rear to step out and your whole lap to fall away from you. He's going to come across the line and set a lovely 32.4, which is good enough to put him in P5 at the moment. But, George, is it going to be safe?
Well, that's the big question. I mean, looking at that, we have got literally only minutes until we come to the end of the session. Plenty of cars now bailing into the pit lane to make sure that they're set for one final run. One last chance to dance here in Q1. Lucas Blakely, huge amounts of pressure on him right now because he has not even set a time. Neither has John Evans. They've got to try and hook this up in desperate conditions here at Silverstone. We've got plenty of other names that are going to find their way through. Will Lewis as well in the elimination zone. Philip Prejneda as well as Patrick Schipos. Quite a few names that perhaps you would expect. Blakely being one of them, the current reigning champion who is not used to topping up the grid here at this point. He's currently holding them up. He wants to be at the top as he now makes his way around this circuit. circuit, heading up towards the line, and just like magic, P1 for the Papaya McLaren.
Yeah, fantastic lap there from Lucas Blakely, showing exactly what he's made of. He said so many times he loves Silverstone. He loves coming to here, and he's certainly showing that right now. 1/10 quicker than Nicholas Longuet, who was the current fastest going into that. But Lucas Blakely on top at the moment, but all the cars exiting the pit lane now, getting themselves ready for one last dance here in Q1. Who's in the danger zone? Tom Manley, Patrick Schipos, Philip Presneda, Will Lewis, obviously a debutant today, and John Evans as well. John Evans, another one yet to set a lap time. And I suppose it's very easy, especially in these wet conditions. It's a fast circuit. It's very easy just to overstep the mark and get an invalidation. Cobb's Corner, probably one of the most difficult ones, because you've got to be as committed as possible. Cautious, you're losing time. Over-aggressive, you get invalidated.
Well, take a look at this. Look at how many cars are currently out on outlaps right now, and many of them going to be looking to try and fit out their best laps here towards the very end. It's going to be a very busy circuit. Thomas Ronhart already out and about now on a flying lap very shortly. You can just see there Brendan Lee also following him. So Kick F1 manacled together for this next lap. Patrick Schipos crossing the line to get started on his flying lap for Alpine. And Alpine could do with a brilliant session here today. They need to jump into Q2 to mitigate certainly the desperation they had in yesterday.
Yeah, it's not been a good event for them so far. Let's see if they can pick it up over the next two days. But we've got Nicholas Longuet. He's still in the box. Looks like he's not going to be going out once again. Feels like he's confident enough with that 32.2, and that is going to see him through into Q2. So he can save a set of intermediate tyres in case he needs that later on. It doesn't quite dry up in this qualifying session. We're riding on board at the moment with Patrick Schipos, as you said, one of the Alpine drivers who will be looking to stake their claim, get some points on the board, because they're the only team in the Constructors' Championship who currently does not have a point to their name. So Alpine will want to get started in this championship and try and see what they can do.
Yeah, Patrick Schipos now, you could call him somewhat of a veteran in his own right, one of the veteran members of the Alpine team. Philip Presneda, former Ferrari driver, and Nicholas Longuet, also former Renault, currently sat in second right now. So we have got quite a few cross paths, certainly in the histories of F1 sim racing. As now Patrick Schipos looking well and truly dialed in right now. That middle sector didn't look too bad whatsoever, but just look at the train of cars that are currently set up for Club. Now, how's this going to work out? Because we've got cars pitched up here. It's down to Schipos to try and manage it. Obviously, there shouldn't be a disruption here for the Alpine as it comes through Club Corner, through the final bend now, down the Lewis Hamilton straight. Let's see what Schipos can register. Will it be enough for a Q2? Oh, that's brilliant. Fifth fastest for Patrick Schipos. Thomas Ronhart now goes up to, now sixth, because his teammate Brendan Lee is up to fifth now this time. Wilson Hughes coming through Stowe, needs to try and hook up one final salacious, hellacious sector. Can he pull this off? Coming through the final couple of corners, trying to stamp his ticket, joining his teammate through to Q2, needs to try and rise himself out of the bottom five at risk of elimination. No more. He's up to P8 and in the top 10.
Yeah, and in danger is the Mercedes driver Jarno Opmeer, 15th for the moment in the standing. Simon Weigang also not looking great down there as well in this session at the moment, as we're watching on board with Tom Manley, who's going through the final sector of corners at the moment. Let's see if he can hook it up. He's in the bottom five at the moment. P17. Can he get himself out of the danger zone? Lucas Blakely, Alfie Butcher, Nicholas Longuet also believe that they are safe, so they are done with this session as well. But let's watch and see what Tom Manley can do as he comes through the final turn now. Across the line. He does. It's P2. Tom Manley safe with that lap. Surely Barry Borman next is P7. Then we've got other drivers flying up through the field. Ulas up into P4. Good lap there from the Haas team. 4th and 5th for those guys. But that puts Jarno Opmeer in danger. John Evans all over for him. Invalidated on that lap, so he's going to be done. Will Lewis Sally for him as well. Presneda in P18. So our eyes now focus on Jarno Opmeer, who saves himself into P2. Saves it right till the last moment. And he is going to get himself into Q2. What about Simon Weigang? Freddie Rasmussen was in the drop zone, but he's not anymore. Up to P2 as well. That demotes Wilson Hughes, whose lap is done. Simon Weigang comes across the line, and sadly, those are 5 drivers who are out. But Alpine not out in Q1. Patrick Schipos is through into Q2, and that is some good news for the Alpine team.
A stellar performance. You've got 2 world champions there up in the top 3. Frederick Rasmussen, who's been a runner-up in the World Championships several times over, in second place. It does mean, though, we are going to lose Wilson Hughes. That's a bitter blow. It looked like he held safety. Remember, he managed to get P8 after his lap, but just goes to show it's not over until it's over, and now sees himself out of qualifying here in Q1. Simon Weigang, unfortunately not able to break out either. And you just see the disappointment on Wilson Hughes' face. He is less than impressed with what has occurred. He breathed a sigh of relief when he crossed the line. I think he thought he was through, but at the end of the day, it's not until the timer ticks to 0 where it all comes to a bitter end. But unfortunately, it's come to a bitter end for Wilson Hughes.
Yeah, I thought he might have been as well. P8 on the board when he crossed the line, I believe, and it looked like it was looking good, but the times were just changing so quickly. The track, the evolution of the track was just building up, and these guys were just going quicker and quicker at the end of the session. And sadly for him, dropping down there, and he just wears his heart on his sleeve. Look at him. He's not happy with that lap at all. But as we saw yesterday, just because your race or your qualifying wasn't great doesn't mean that your race is going to be bad. We saw it with Alfie Butcher, and yes, okay, there was a bit of luck with that virtual safety car, which helped him out massively. But you never know what can happen in F1 sim racing, so there's no need to get too down about it now. Go back into your team, get yourself ready for the next qualifying session later on when we head to Spa.
Yeah, tough day as well for Will Lewis, who is now in 19th. But at the end of the day, he hasn't done much practice around the Silverstone circuit. Stepped in at the very last minute to replace Alvaro Carreton, who was feeling poorly. So Williams their hand forced to make a change here at this stage as well. So quite a few changes being made by all the drivers really across the board, a few stepping into certain seats here at this point. But immediately from the get-go, we're seeing some of the old faces now starting to pop their heads above. Freddie Rasmussen, who has a great record around this circuit, no surprises to see him in the top 3. Yeah,
left it right till the last minute. I was like, oh my God, Freddie Rasmussen might be out, but then bam, there he goes, right up to the top. There are our 5 eliminated drivers: Patrick Schipos, Wilson Hughes, Simon Weigang, Philip Presneda, and John Evans. Sadly, not a good day for Aston Martin. Alpine have had it over the last day. Now it looks like Aston Martin are kind of taking that mantle. They're going to need to try and build themselves up for the next qualifying session in Spa. Gives them a little bit more time though, because all these other drivers, they're going to be doing laps at the moment, so they can kind of think about their preparation now going into Spa, and that's really what their focus has got to be. Forget about what's happened now. Let's head into Spa, clean head, go again.
Yeah, that's what they're going to have to be thinking as well, because of course we do have 2 qualifying sessions to bring you as well. And by the sounds of it, we do have an interview ready with Claire Cottingham.
Yeah, alongside me, Will Lewis. Now, Will, it's been a bit of a funny day for you because you jumped in without a lot of practice because one of your teammates is poorly.
Yeah, I mean, Alvaro woke up, didn't feel too good, felt a bit dizzy, so I got the nod from the team to have the chance, have the opportunity, and obviously I'm very thankful for that. Today didn't really go as planned, so far anyway. And, you know, we put everything into it, little mistake in the last. I mean, we might have had a chance if it was perfect, but to be honest with you, we didn't really expect to be much higher than where we are, so main aim is to just try and get back in the race and see what we can do. Conditions
obviously difficult as well because it was raining out there.
Yeah. I mean, when I saw rain, I mean, it's a good equaliser, so I was a little bit happy about that. But yeah, it was good fun anyway, just to try and slide your way about the track, and pace was sort of there, just needed to be perfect and wasn't quite that today.
And how much preparation did you actually get before this?
I got about 20 minutes on the rig before I hopped into qualifying. So yeah.
And to be clear, how much would you have if it was a normal race weekend that you knew you were racing?
Probably about 2 weeks. So yeah, it wasn't always going to be perfect, but gave it our best go. I mean, it's no excuse really to be that far off. We're going to keep pushing, look at what went wrong, what we did right, and hopefully smash it next time.
Important thing is though, you've got some practice under your belt now. So onwards to the next qualifying session and then on to the races. Back to you guys.
Thank you very much, Claire. Thank you for that. And interesting insights there from Will Lewis. And we've looked at his abilities as a driver. Dare I say it, you know, he is brilliant. I mean, we see what Ismail Fassi can do. Will Lewis in league racing competition has beaten Ismail Fassi several times historically. So I would never, ever write him off. It's just down to mere preparation. We know how much work these guys put in before every start of the season and during the season.
Well, being in a LAN event, it's not all about how quick you are in your time trial and your practice at home, because you're in your comfortable own rig. You know, you've got your familiarities around you. You also don't have cameras popping in and out, lights flashing around you, little bits of glare on screens here and there. So it's a completely different environment. And to be thrown in at the last minute, have 20 minutes of practice just to get comfortable with your rig, because it's your brake pedal that you've taken from home, but it's a different setup, and it's just everything is slightly different, and nothing ever feels good compared to what you usually race on at home. It always is going to feel different, even if it is exactly the same thing. So I think a fantastic performance from him. Yes, he was a little bit off the pace, 1.3 seconds off the pace in the intermediate condition. Was probably hoping with the wet weather that maybe it would dry up by the end of the session to really be a case of, if I put my lap in at the perfect opportunity, I might see myself up at the front of the field. But unfortunately, that did not, come into fruition today. but he'll go again in Spa. He's got another session now. He's felt a bit more comfortable, and let's see what he can do later on.
Absolutely right. And with 12 minutes now to go, we've now begun Q2, and we're riding aboard with Danny Berejnet, who now makes his way through the middle sector, coming through Luffield and Brooklands, before then venturing through the old paddock straight. Just hear him just mumbling to himself as he tries to hook this lap up. Danny Berejnet, who has been teammate to 2 world champions historically, Brendan Lee, the first one, ironically, at this Mercedes team. And I think just having a little moment there as he makes his way through towards Copse Corner and just trying to get his bearings through the beginning phase of Q2. We're not even into the bottom 10 minutes or the final 10 minutes of the session yet. Of course, we saw all the cars venturing out with 10 minutes to go in Q1. That tends to be the sticking point, I would say, Hayden, at this stage, because you don't want to leave yourself with too little time to set your lap.
Yeah, certainly. So looking at our radar on our screens, it doesn't look like the rain is going to be drying up anytime soon. Looks like it's going to go from light rain to light rain. So intermediate tyres seem like the tyres of choice for the rest of this Q2 session. We'll see what Q3 holds, though. Maybe we'll get a little bit of a few rays of sunshine, which rarely does happen in the UK. But we can hope our best for that and see whether we can have some really fast lap times here at Silverstone. But Danny Berejnet bailing out of that lap again, just an installation lap for the Hungarian driver here in Silverstone, just to get himself in the mood, get his eye in, ready for later on in the session.
Yeah, now parks his car outside the garage. Patrick Schipos out on track. Great to see Alpine back in Q2 contention. They haven't had the easiest start to the season. No points scored just yet, but maybe Silverstone will offer something a little different. Schipos, very talented historically. As I said, this being his 3rd season in the championship, came in as a rookie for the 2021 season, has been part of Alpine through his entire time in F1 sim racing, and has also been competitive at high levels in the past too. And he goes to the top with a 132.930 as he exits out of the club in the final corners through turn 1 here, as he now looks to proceed forwards, maybe even getting a car into Q3. That would be such a big deal for the Alpine outfit.
Yeah, Alpine once again on the radio. Stop the count. Let's get into Q3 straight away. As we've got Lucas Blakely, the sole McLaren now, after Wilson Hughes sadly got knocked out in Q1. So he's flying the flag for the Papaya team in P14 at the moment, but of course no laps time set for the majority of the grid. Just Patrick Schipos at the moment, who's currently top of the board. Everybody's just building up, getting ready for this Q2 session, and we're going to be waiting to see what sort of lap times can be set. We've got 9.5 minutes left on the clock. This is kind of the first round of lap times that you usually get in a qualifying session, around the 9:30 mark, where drivers are going to be this time now actually pushing those installation laps. They're all done. Let's see what lap times we can get on board. This might be on a used set of intermediate tyres, though, again, just to get that banker lap, just in case we've seen it before, drivers invalidating, and that could be enough to get you through on a banker lap, or you never know, you might just have the outright pace on those old tyres to somehow get yourself up to the front. Yeah,
I mean, let's talk about Lucas Blakely as well, because he's had such a rough start to the season, Bahrain with the wing damage, and yesterday the technical issue, Hayden. For a defending champion looking to take a second title and become part of the exclusive club that is Jarno Opmeer and Brendan Lee in terms of the 2 World Championships club, they tend to go back to back if you're going to take 2. Is he in a tough spot here to lay claim to a second world title?
Definitely in a tough spot. You know, I feel like it's all been Thomas Ronhaar at the moment. The luck that he's had, and also the skill that he's shown in this series so far, has put him with such an advantage, 21 points at the moment in the championship over Freddie Rasmussen. So whereas Lucas Blakely only has 12 points. So that is a difference, if I can do maths, of 51 points between the two of them. So Lucas Blakely, though, put himself at the top of the timings, 1:31.9. So a whole second quicker there than Patrick Schipos in this qualifying session. That's a strong lap there from Lucas. Let's see whether that will be enough for him to get into Q3 and whether he'll have the confidence to step away from the car for later. Brendan Lee across the line, 33.8, not a great lap from him, so I'm sure that was just maybe a warm-up lap, or maybe there was a mistake out there somewhere. We'll see whether he will go again.
Yeah, absolutely. Brendan Lee, now 3rd fastest currently, just sat in behind Schipos. We've got more cars, though, coming out on outlaps. There's quite a crew of them. Jarno Opmeer and Danny Berejnet, with making it 2 Mercedes now out on their outlaps. Tom Manley also looking to set his next lap. Barry Burremand in the Ferrari, also looking to enlist his. He's also been on the scene for quite some time. I've harked back to many great battles we've seen in league racing history between he and Jarno Opmeer. We could yet see some more, this time in F1 sim racing. Who knows? Freddie Rasmussen also out and about now this time too. So we've got to the point where it's crunch time. Effectively 2 fast laps to go here, Hayden, for a chance at landing a spot for the pole shootout in Q3.
Yeah, certainly it's all about getting in the top 10 now. We will have another round of of qualifying laps later on in this session. Around the sort of 2-minute mark, they'll be all out on the track, ready to go for that. But this is to get that banker lap in, to get yourself a nice solid platform, and maybe even, who knows, a good enough lap to see yourself through into Q3. Brendan Lee, though, just taking it nice and easy down the hanger straight, trying to either build up that ERS, or his lap is done for the time being. He's going to get back into the pit box. But we're watching on board with Barry Borman, yet to set a lap time in this Q2 session. Let's see what the Ferrari driver can do. He's going to be approaching where Brendan Lee was momentarily ago. P7 for no lap time, of course, on board. Heading down in towards. So, little dab of the brake, throw it through the corner, try and maximise your speed through there, use the outside curb, and then get back on the throttle. Hard on the brakes in towards Club and Vale. Get it over on the left. Don't hit any of the sausage curbs on either of the inside of the corner because it will really unsettle the car. Use a little bit of curb on the outside, back on the throttle. Don't let the car step away from you. Cross the line, and it is a 32.2. Good enough to see himself in P3 at the moment. Longue P2 as well, alongside his teammates. So both Ferrari drivers looking good at the moment, but still 0.3 of a second off Lucas Blakely. What a lap from him.
Yeah, Tom Manley, as I said, former Challengers champion on Xbox, managing to split the two Ferraris. You've got a string of them as Ulas Yildirim comes up through as well. Freddie Rasmussen, third fastest, just behind Alfie Butcher, who is second fastest at this stage. So they're all coming across the line as Danny Berejnay goes fastest of anybody. And I tell you what, he gave a little bit of a shout there from his seat. He was absolutely thrilled with that one. A 1:31.921 to displace the current reigning champion, Lucas Blakely, who currently sits now second fastest. Ulas Yildirim just backing off, coming down the Wellington Straight to allow the Red Bull through on the inside as well. But high drama now, high stakes as we come into the closing stages of Q2.
Strong up there from Danny Berejnay to put himself at the top of the board. As you can say, a little shout from him, a little bit of excitement there too. And I think he said great last sector, but I can't be entirely sure. But that's what it sounded like there from Danny Berejnay. Alfie Butcher up into P3, strong lap from him as well, into the 32.0s. But only two drivers into the 31s at the moment. I'm sure we're going to see more drivers get close to them later on in this qualifying session. Ulas just working his way through the traffic at the moment, taking it nice and easy right now as they're heading themselves through the corners at the moment. But Ulas through Maggots, through Beckett's, just taking it nice and cautiously. All these drivers getting themselves back into the pit lane. I don't believe anybody else is still on a flyer, but notably, two drivers have not set a lap time yet in this qualifying session. Thomas Ronha is one of them. He's just watching what is going on. I can see his screen over the moment. He's just watching what's going on out on track between the drivers. And we've also got Josh Edu as well.
Yeah, as you now see Ulas Yildirim make his way through the latter stages on this lap. Still Danny Berejnay at the head of the field. Alfie Butcher still in third place as well. Ulas now coming into the pits. Yeah, it's been such a volatile quali. Jana Watmir still sixth fastest at this point, as all the drivers look to come in to prepare their cars for one final run here in Q2. This is where the top 10 will be decided. Looking at that bottom 10, however, Jed Norgrove, who has qualified brilliantly over the last day or so, was brilliant yesterday. There's Nicholas Longue, who has now seen seen his time drop lower and lower, but his initial one was brilliant and has put him in the top 10 and in contention for a spot in Q3. But at this point, it's all quiet on the Western Front. You can cut the tension with a knife, Hayden.
Yeah, there's the Ferrari drivers just getting themselves ready for one final go here in Q2. Both drivers, 8th there for Barry Borman, 5th at the moment for Nicholas Longue. So Barry's sort of on the cusp. He needs to make sure he gets a solid lap in there, but even Nicholas Longue, I'm not too sure whether that is safe at the moment. Danny Berejnay and Lucas Blakely into the 31.9s, potentially could be looking at, popping up shop and, getting themselves ready for Q3 at the moment.
Yeah, I can see plenty of the engineers as well in the background. Brett Koch as well as Ben Hawkins and the others too. Of course, we've also got Zolt Timbush there in the background as well in shot as he looks to survey the goings-on. Of course, Haas, waking up this morning absolutely thrilled with their performance. There is, of course, the Ferrari team behind the scenes getting ready for yet another day at the office. Joni Tormler stepping in a role as well in terms of the engineering side. So utilising his expertise here at this frail stage. And there is Samuel Lebert as well, working there for Kick. Well, the Kick F1 esports team. Thomas Ronhart, of course, one of their favoured drivers in this aspect. Brendan Lee, also, don't forget him, the two-time champion. But a lovely shot there as we take a look across the order, across the grid here in this virtual paddock. There is Thomas Ronhart, who's now out on an out lap. It is crunch time now, Hayden. Everything left out on the circuit for a spot in the top 10 and Q3.
Yeah, it certainly is. All drivers now out on track, going for one final run in Q2 to make it into that top 10 shootout. Thomas Ronhaar just building up those tyre temperatures, holding the brake, holding the throttle. That's going to build up the brake temperature, and doing so allows you to build up the inside carcass temperature of the tyre, and then that gets your tyres ready to go for the end, and make sure you've got yourself in the prime position to start your flying lap. But he's going to be one of the first drivers to come across the line. There are drivers closing into him because he's driving really slowly at the moment on this out lap. I'm not too sure whether Thomas wants to be the leader in this pack or whether he wants those guys to get past him and be one of the last guys across the line. Of course, if we look out on track, it looks wet, but I can't really see if there's much rain. It's just kind of like spitting down. It's a very, very light rain at the moment, so that sort of implicates that maybe the track is drying and we're going to get some faster times here in this last run in qualifying.
Yeah, Thomas Ronhaar, who's now making his way through Maggots and Beckett. Scott Thomas certainly got his teammate Brendan Lee sat in 13th, just ahead of him here. Kick F1 need to try and get both cars now into the top 10 with this one final flying lap as he now makes his way down the straight. He's going to be the head of this train. Just look at the cars there and behind. They're all going to be fighting over clean air at this point because they can't stay like this, Hayden. If they do so, they could hinder their own laps.
Either someone needs to get past them and get a move on.
Look at this.
That! They're
What is
all
this?
stuck up behind each other, and they're all going to be getting in each other's way potentially. Even if there is enough of a distance, it's a distraction that you just don't want on a qualifying lap. So they're all going to bunch up massively now through this last section. Thomas Ronhaar doesn't have a lap on board, so he's going to have to really go for it. He's now getting through that last corner, and he's going to be crossing the line now. We're on board with Thomas Ronhaar. So let's watch his final lap here in Q2. No lap time on board, so no delta to compare with him. We'll see whether he's up or down on his lap time, but let's see if he can make himself into Q3. Hard on the brakes in towards the right-hander, now heading more into the loop. Get it over to the right and then flick it back over to the left. Use a little bit of the curb on the inside, but be aware of the sausage curb because it's going to unsettle you as you then approach the Wellington straight. Back on full throttle, the hot lap mode obviously on, so the DRS is deploying, or the ERS, sorry, is deploying. On the brakes, just slightly, not quite full brake pressure as you head yourself in towards Brooklands and Luffield. A little bit of curb on the inside. He kept it nice and tight last time we watched him, and it's tight again. Still a bit of a V-shaped corner, but he keeps it a lot tighter. Uses the exit curb and is back on the throttle as he heads down the old start finish straight, making his way to the famous Cops corner. Use the curb on the left-hand side. Throw it in at the 50-meter board. Little dab of the brake there from Thomas and a little bit of curb on the exit for good measure. Then heading into the famous Maggots and Beckett. The left, then the right. Keep it on the curbs, then get it back over to the left and really open up this last section of the corner. Back on the throttle, use the curb on the left-hand side. Maybe a bit too much, but he corrects it nicely, and he's on the throttle, and it is a purple Sector 2. No, sorry, it's a green Sector 2. The mini-map said purple, but it's Sector 2 there. Up at the top is green. Throwing it in towards Stowe. Nice and tight on the inside. Use the exit curb. Don't run out and invalidate. He does not. A couple of corners left to navigate, though, to see what lap time Thomas Ronhaar can put on the board. Very close to the sausage on the inside, but he avoids it. That was perfect. Through the last couple of corners, back on the throttle. The car trying to step away, but he navigates it perfectly, and it's fastest in Q2.
Yep, Barry Burman, though, takes it away from him. Patrick Sheepos, third fastest here at this stage. Alfie Butcher, the winner from yesterday. Blakely, the champion now, so far, makes his way to the top, as we're now seeing Brendan Lee go fourth fastest ahead of his teammate Tom Manley. Challengers champion, now hits the front. Jarno Opmeer jumps ahead of Freddie Rasmussen as they all look to square off for Q3. A sensational session. Tom Manley goes fastest here in Q2.
Now I know what Thomas Ronhaar was doing. That track was drying up at the end of the session. He was trying to go as slow as possible to try and be either the last one across the line or stop all those drivers from actually getting a lap in. But Thomas Ronhaar, did he make it just about? P10 there in qualifying. Alfie Butcher looks like one of the drivers who was knocked out, unfortunately, in this qualifying session. Jarno Opmeer, second place. Freddie Rasmussen up at the top. Lucas Blakely, of course. But the track was really drying at the end of that session. We noticed it. The rain was oh so light. It was just a few little drops here and there. So the track drying up massively at the end of the session. We saw some fantastic lap times there. And sadly for those guys who are out, they will have no more running until we go to Spa later on.
It looked like Lucas Blakely was going to land that big Q2 time. He's through to Q3 anyway, which is great. And credit to Jarno Opmeer and Freddie Rasmussen, though this is a big deal if you are Tom Manley right now. He is, of course, the F1 Esports Challengers Xbox champion from prior history, now stepping stepping up into the F1 Sim Racing World Championship. It's just gone fastest in Q2. Of course, that doesn't necessarily mean anything right now because, of course, we've got the pole shootout coming up in Q3. But in terms of someone who is ingrained into the track, ingrained into the circuit, the very nature of Silverstone, Tom Manley seems to have hooked this one up.
Yeah, that was very strong, but or was it just perfectly timed to get your lap in? Obviously, you have a lot of distractions, you had a lot of cars around you, but I think nonetheless, it's still a fantastic lap. Looking at the grid, Danny Beresne, I can see on our time screens, he's down as twice. I'm not too sure whether he's in or out in this qualifying session. I believe he was at the bottom in P15, sadly, but we'll get confirmation on that. There looks like a few soft tyres as well going on our graphics, so maybe the track has just dried up enough. Maybe in that last moment, DRS would have been enabled just after they crossed the line.
Likely.
And we could have been going into what looked like better dry conditions for these cars. So potentially we're going to see a lot faster laps here in Q3 and seeing them all really push. But we believe that Claire has an interview and she's with Alfie Butcher right now.
I am indeed. The race winner from yesterday, but unfortunately wasn't to be here at Silverstone. It's going to be a bit of a tricky one for you starting outside the top 10.
Yeah, I think it was a bit of a... We were looking really good in the inters. We were consistently near the front in all of our laps. It became a crossover period at the end of the session, and I'm not too sure what it was, whether it was just a misjudgment of the weather, but track position we thought mattered a bit more than it did. But yeah, ultimately I don't think there was too much more we could have done, and hopefully we'll bounce back again in the race.
Were you caught up in that whole group that tried to get that I think we were held up by Thomas Ronhaar in the end. Were you held up in that group?
Yeah, it was a bit chaotic in the last chicane. Everyone just trying to get good track position, but I think ultimately it didn't really matter. It was just a weird situation to be in.
On the plus side, it's a track you know incredibly well, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's definitely, obviously, home track, living quite close to it. But yeah, we can definitely fight for it in the race, and hopefully we can get back into the points.
Have you had a chat again since your win yesterday with your dad? Are you still feeling positive about that? I saw your dad, Jason, today, and you said, I've got plenty of wins in me yet, Dad. Why are you getting so excited?
Yeah, I spoke to him quite a lot, obviously. But no, it's just, obviously, I was expecting to maybe win a race this season if my pace was how it is, but maybe not so soon. So, yeah, it was definitely a good surprise.
Well, congratulations for the win, and let's see how you do in Silverstone. It's time for the battle for pole position.
Yes. Thank you, CC, for that. An interesting take from Alfie Butcher. I mean, I think he can take a little bit of solace, Hayden, because bear in mind, he started P13 yesterday and took a race win. So nothing is ever certain, especially around Silverstone.
Definitely not. I think he can definitely take that. And we've already seen some rain so far in quali. Who knows if there's going to be rain later on in the race. All the drivers, though, looks like they're going to go out on the soft tyres. So the track is drying up, and I can see on our graphic that it's going from light rain to overcast conditions. So the track is going to be drying, but the sun's obviously not shining, so it's not going to be drying as quickly as maybe we would have in those conditions. But they're out on the softs at the moment. Whilst the cars are out on the track, they're obviously going to be, just drying the track as they go along. But it's definitely time for the soft tyres. And as you can see, Freddie Rasmussen, we can even see the tyre temperature graphic currently got 88 degrees on the inside carcass of his tyre temperatures. You can see just building up that temperature on the brake, on the throttle. The brake's getting to 1,000 degrees. But of course, that's going to help build up that internal tyre temperature.
Yeah, Freddie Rasmussen getting prepped for his first run in Q3 session. Obviously, they're trying to get as much time in as they can. They can't really afford to stall in Q3 because we have, of course, only got pretty much a 10-minute session. But, of course, we're now into the final 8 minutes and 25. Freddie, though, off the back of his successes here in the past, I'm sure he'd be looking to maybe add it to his 3 in a row here at Silverstone for the British Grand Prix. Wouldn't put it past him. His record has certainly been stellar. He'd be looking for more wins, no doubt, to further his cause in becoming a world champion for the very first time. It's hard to fathom that truly is the case. But the Great Dane now making his way down the Hanger Straight. He'll come up then towards Stowe Corner and get set to take the club and out of Vale and then down the home straight before entering turn 1 on his first flying lap here in Q3. But just look at the names underneath as well. We've got Jarno Opmeer, Danny Beresne, Tom Manley, Barry Burremand, Nicholas Longay, Josh Edo, Ishmael Fassi, Brendan Lee and Lucas Blakely all taking part in this session.
What a shootout we're going to have for the pole position. And of course, unlike usual qualifying sessions, they have all got brand new soft tyres. They can have 2 runs with their new sets of tyres. Here we go though, watching on board with Mr. Consistency. Through the first turn, absolutely flat out through turn 1 and turn 2. On the brakes after the 100-metre board. Use a little bit of curve on the entry to really maximise your speed through the corner. Get the car set up through the loop nice and tidy on the curbing on the inside. Hits the apex, but again, does not hit the sausage curb on the inside. No need to use the outside curb. You can keep it nice and tight to save as much time as you possibly can on the exit of the loop and onto the Wellington straight. Use the curb on the outside as you throw the car very wide of the apex though there from Freddie Rasmussen. I think this lap is going to get away from him, as that is a crucial error. And whilst it might look like, okay, he's only lost a 1/10 of a second there, a 1/10 at F1 sim racing can be the difference between pole position and 10th.
It certainly can do, and it might be a consequence of running these soft tyres still with a relatively wet track, because of course you can see those damp patches still evident here at Silverstone as he flies through Copse Corner and through towards Maggotts and Beckett's now that he takes aggressively. Certainly no stone unturned, no box left unchecked, as now Freddie Rasmussen shoots down the hanger straight. Next up will be Stowe as he looks to barrel his way down now, already showing some electrifying pace as we've come to expect from the Red Bull esports driver, or the Red Bull sim racing driver, as he now flies into the final sector, down in towards Club and Vale Corner, and very shortly we'll head through the Lewis Hamilton straight, crossing the line to register his first lap time of Q3. The question is, what's he going to bring to the table? Goes to the top with a 1:29.539. Teammate Josh Edo now second fastest, in behind his teammate Tom Manley, making it a Red Bull trio if you factor in AlphaTauri as well. Ishmael Fassi goes fourth fastest too. Barry Burman in the Scuderia Ferrari. The prancing horses, look at the prance on higher. Fifth fastest, not enough to break into the top 4. Danny Berejnet though topples him. Longuet comes in clutch with the initial 29.426. A stellar time from the Frenchman. I'm sure he would have enjoyed that. Struggles for Brendan Lee, but let's watch on as the Flying Dutchman, Jarno Opmeer, 2-time champion in the Mercedes car, hurtling around Stowe Corner. He has got only the small matter of a few corners to take here at Silverstone. Can he land a decisive blow here in this initial stint of Q3 qualifying? They've still got more time after this, but this will surely send a message, enough for third fastest to split the 2 Red Bulls.
Certainly so. Brendan Lee invalidating on his lap. I'm not too sure that's going to matter too much to him, as the track is going to continue to dry up and continue to get quicker. We're only about 3 seconds faster than what we were setting at the end on those intermediates. So I'm sure that the track is going to ramp up at the end of this Q3 session, and we're going to get some really strong lap times in at the end. But Lucas Blakely, he's going to finish this first lap. Again, I guess it's kind of similar to when we see the drivers go on intermediates at the start of a dry session. They're just getting that delta in so that when they do their full flying lap, they're able to see it green in the top end corner, and then that's always going to be a positive for them to really give them confidence to go through the lap. But Lucas Blakely goes fastest for the time being, which is no real surprise as the track gets quicker. He's the last driver to cross the line. He's got the best track conditions.
Yeah, track evolution certainly on show here as we go drier here towards the second half of Q3, and Lucas Blakely taking full advantage of it. Already up on his delta as well once again, but obviously he may choose to come straight back in because he needs to get a fresh set of boots on.
Yeah, certainly so. But there'll be enough time to do that. There's 4 minutes left on the clock. He needs to get back in the pit lane, and you're probably looking around the 2:30, 2:45 is the last time to get out of the pit. But as you can see, he's absolutely flying around the track to, I guess, just to get into the pits as soon as possible. Though he's gone purple in Sector 1, so maybe he made a mistake on his first lap and he's deciding to go again. But I don't know. I just feel like this could be a hindrance because the track is going to get quicker at the end of the session. That if you go this early, you're just kind of, shooting yourself in the foot because they're all going to have a better track than you later on. So hopefully for him, he's pushing to get back into the pit lane. One thing I have figured out as well, Thomas Ronhart got knocked out in Q2. We had 2 Danny Beresnets on our timing screen, but Thomas Ronhart, I guess, is one of those Danny Beresnets, and it was out in Q2. Sadly, not in his Q3 session, which is, I believe, the first time we've ever seen Thomas Ronhart knocked out and not made it to Q3.
Yeah, I believe so. Of course, not an ideal day at the office, but Kit can still rest assured knowing that Brendan Lee is still in the top 10, albeit hasn't managed to nail down a time. Hasn't been an easy start to Q3 for him. So now we've got to the point where the track is at proper racing conditions. It may still be overcast, but the track itself relatively dry, and that goes to show from Lucas Blakely's lap, the 29.217 that he's managed to enlist has now populated him to the top. But already some movement down in the pit lane because we've got Nicolas Longuet and Barry Burman getting set to go out. Ferrari already jumping out of the pit lane and heading out onto the circuit to commence their final run here in this qualifying session. The Red Bulls in hot pursuit. They're going to go out for one final run. Hayden, What do you make of their chances?
Well, they're going out on track, obviously, to make sure they don't miss out on the clock and don't mistime it. But you kind of still, want to be that last driver to come across the line to start your lap. But you want that still clean air ahead of you. So it's risk and reward. Do you risk it to be one of the last drivers across the line and unfortunately miss the clock and then you don't get a lap in, or you get caught up in a bit of traffic, or you have cars ahead of you that are distractions? Or do you decide to be, okay, I'm going to be at the front of the train and therefore I've got clean air ahead of me, nothing to worry about, but then you might have the disadvantage of not having the track at its best quality?
Yeah. Well, as they make their way around on their next laps or so, we will be seeing those times jettisoning and improving. We will, of course, be seeing them all improving, you'd fathom, given the fact that we did have quite a high impetus of wet weather during the first runs. Of course, Blakely having one of those rare moments where he was having the drier track sort of impact his, should we say, the latter two-thirds of his flying lap, as now Barry Burman heads through Luffield and Brooklands this time before hurtling down the old paddock straight, heading through towards Copse Corner. And the Ferrari currently seats itself ninth. Just goes to show the fine margins that wet weather can create, Hayden.
Yeah, and he's slowing this pack down. Just look at him at the moment. Barry Borman driving as slowly as he possibly can, but still trying to make the clock. That's what everyone's trying to beat right now. They're not trying to set a lap time on this out lap. They're just trying to beat the clock. And look how close they are. It's like we're having a race at the moment. A slow race, but a race nonetheless. Lucas Blakely, of course, has got out the pit lane. He is going to join the back of this train. So he is still going to get a lap. And there's 1 minute remaining. They've got about one sector left to go, and they're getting a little bit feisty. Look, you can see the Merc right up behind there of Barry Borman. Not too sure which Mercedes driver that is, and a couple of drivers going side by side as they go through Maggots and Beckett through there as well. But George, it's crunch time, so I'm going to hand over to you.
Yeah, here we go, folks. Final last chance to dance. It truly is this time. And just look at them fighting over track position again like they were towards the end of Q2. We heard from Alfie Butcher, whilst it didn't necessarily affect what had gone on heading through towards those final moments during that lap, it still is a challenge for those drivers to find those clear avenues in order to raise their optimal laps. And now Barry Burman crossing the line to commence his flying lap here in this session. He's going to lead the train through turn 1 with an AlphaTauri in behind too. It's been certainly a stellar session from Tom Manley. We saw him go fastest of anybody in Q2. What an appearance. He'll be looking to do the same here, this time in Q3. This time, though, dry track conditions as they head around Aintree Corner and down the long straight at Wellington, where they can open up that DRS as well as they send it down through towards the next left and right. Luffield and Brooklands, purple in the first sector here from Barry Burman so far, but there is a string of drivers in behind that I'm sure will be looking to try and take that away from him. Fourth gear as he now powers out and uses all the curbing on the outside, and now down the old paddock straight, heading through towards the fabled Copse Corner. We saw Hamilton and Verstappen getting it all wrong together as they went side by side through this apex. Of course, no need to worry about that here in qualifying, as now Burman hurtled through Maggots, Beckett's now left, right, aplenty. But before then, you reach the hangar straight coming through down towards Stowe. You can just see him 7th gear. He'll then find the 8th gear and very shortly downshift twice potentially before then slamming back on the throttle to hurtle towards Club and Vale. As you can now see him trying to hook this one up using all the curb, at least as much as he can. Try not to cross over those white lines. A deep dive into the left and the right. A double right corner to come as he now looks to try and attack the closing stages of this lap. Barry Burman, can he topple him? He can at 1:26.4. Manley, second fastest. Brendan Lee goes into third. Danny Bereshnay goes to the top with a 1:26.3. Longuet second. Burman down into third fastest. Rasmussen can only go sixth. Fasty again, back again with a third fastest time. And the Flying Dutchman, Jarno Opmeer, with a pole lap. And you can see what it means to him. Mercedes ascending here in Q3.
What a drive from the Mercedes team. 1-2 here at Silverstone. Absolutely incredible scenes, and they are going for it at the moment. Both of them absolutely ecstatic with that result. And a strong drive. They timed it perfectly. Barry Burman was the first one to start the lap time, and he just had that slight disadvantage of being back there. But there we go. Look at how much it means to those guys. They are absolutely ecstatic with that. Unfortunately, Lucas Blakely, he left it late. He just about crossed the line with 1 second left to go, and he managed to get himself into P3, but maybe just a little bit too late, getting caught up with a bit of traffic there, but a fine lap there from Lucas Blakely. Here are the final standings then.
Wow.
Jarno Opmeer, top of the board. 45 thousandths of a second separating the two Mercedes driver, and then Lucas Blakely about a 10th off from those guys. Brendan Lee having a bit of a chat at the moment with his team. But a great qualifying for him, beating his teammate for the first time so far this event. So he'll be happy with that. Not a good day there for Thomas Ronhaar, who is, of course, our championship leader. And I believe that Claire is currently with our pole sitter, Jana Wotmir.
I am indeed a very happy Jarno. Where did that come from?
Yeah, of course, I knew my pace in the wet was going to be good because I, in general, practice a lot of wet. But then my first Q1 lap was not great, so I had to go out on new inters again. And considering you only have 3 sets of inters, I was getting a little bit nervous about the Q3 session because I was going to run out of sets of tires. And then, yeah, first run in Q3 was already slicks. I had to alter the setup a little bit from the dry, of course. Because we were still like 5 seconds off the pace. And the first run, the setup was not good enough yet, but of course the track was drying, so decided to stick with it, and it worked out. So,
after yesterday, this is exactly what you needed, isn't it? A big smile on your face, exactly where you want to be.
Yeah, exactly. I expected not to go on pole on Silverstone, to be honest. Silverstone is one of my weaker tracks, but I practiced hard for it all year, especially on this track, because I knew it was going to be a pain for me. Every year Silverstone is in F1 Esports, and yeah, I just knew I had to be on it. And even though it was not in a complete dry session, I'm just happy that I finally got a pole, especially around Silverstone.
And we do know at Silverstone as well, it's very important to have a bit of support from behind you. Your teammate is starting second on the grid. That'll be something good at going into turn 1, surely.
Yeah, of course. Although I'll be starting P4, I got a 3-place grid penalty, so I'll be starting back in P4. I won't be saying why. I don't want another 3-place grid penalty, so we will just fight from P4. It's fine.
Okay, all right. Well, fair enough. Congratulations, you got the pace out there. Let's head on to the next qualifying session.
Thank you.
Thank you, Arno. Right, guys, I think it's back to you.
Thank you so much, Claire. Well, guys, that was a little bit of a bounce back for Jarno, certainly. Did you have that on your bingo card? He said it's one of his weakest tracks.
Yeah, he's never won, I believe, around Silverstone.
No.
I don't even think he's even got on the podium if Georgia has a look as many notes he's got over there.
I can tell you
never got on the podium
Wow.
at Silverstone. So a weak track for him. So to come out, smash pole position after what happened yesterday.
Yep.
Yes, he's got a 3-place grid penalty. He's going to be starting P4, but you're still in the mix. We've seen so far over this event that if you're in that top 5, you're still in that fight for the win.
Definitely still in the mix, and of course it's also a confidence boost for him to have put it on pole, so he'll be fired up when we get to the race later today. Danny Berezne will be bumped up to pole. That's not too bad, is it? Mercedes team must be very happy.
I mean, that's the best result Mercedes could have wished for, really, wasn't it? I mean, I thought it was brilliant from Berezne. I mean, bear in mind, you've got to say, this is his first qualifying session of the event. You know, so to come in, first time of asking, going second fastest is decent enough to make it a Mercedes effective 1-2.
Yeah.
Obviously, Jarno sustaining the penalty for reasons he doesn't want to go into, understandable. But that was a statement of intent from the Flying Dutchman, coming off the back of difficulties yesterday, responding in the best way possible. And you can guarantee he's going to try and chase his first race win and a first podium at this track.
Absolutely. Like I said, he's going to be fired up when we get to the race later today. But for now, Claire is out and about with another interview lined up. Clara, who have you found?
I found a disappointed Thomas Ronhaar. We're not used to seeing you out in Q2. Can you just talk us through what happened out there?
Just about lap, to be honest. Of course, we went out early, which in the end wasn't the right decision. But kind of have to blame myself. It wasn't a good lap. And yeah, first time out in Q2, so not a great start to the day, but we can definitely fight from here.
It is a track that can be quite tricky out there, and it's easy to lose. We saw you put in some incredible performances, especially in the rain as well, and kind of catch the snap of the car. So do you know where you lost the time?
I think in general just the driving out was, displaying wasn't great. Wasn't comfortable in the wet and at all in Silverstone, to be honest. I knew it was going to be tough, but like I said, anything can happen. Many drivers, I think Alfie won from 13th yesterday. Of course, Austria, but it's esports, anything can happen, and yeah, we'll see what happens.
It's still very surprising to see you here. That's a sort of half positive, isn't it?
Yeah. No, I mean, it's good to, you can never have a perfect, season, and you can never do, well. These things happen, but you have to move on, and, yeah, we'll fight again.
Next up, Spa. Is it a track you enjoy?
Yeah. It's my favourite track, so, yeah, we'll just see. It's going to be a good one, hopefully, better than Silverstone, I hope, and, yeah, going to be good.
The little smile on his face, I think, says everything. Let's keep an eye on Thomas Ronhaar in the next one. Ariana.
We definitely will keep an eye on him. And let's continue making our way down the grid. Lucas Blakely. Good performance from him, sets him up for a nice starting position.
Yeah, again, another driver who had a bit of a disappointment yesterday. Obviously, he was the reason why the virtual safety car came out, and a great bounce back for him. I was surprised he got the time in because I was watching our track map, and he literally crossed the line with a second to go. So he just about made it to get that lap time in, and that was perfect for him because he had the best track conditions out of anyone there and the best chance to put himself up at the top. Sadly, not quite pole position, but we'll be starting this race from P2, and I'm sure that's going to be a great place to try and get this championship back on track.
Which is exactly what he's going to be wanting to do. Currently sitting a little bit further down the field than we would expect to see him. We have got the provisional starting grid to run through. George, do you want to just talk us through it?
Yeah, let's take you through the starting grid. John Evans starting from the back of the order with Will Lewis alongside him in 19th. So it's Aston Martin and Williams at the back with Philip Prejnader in 18th. Simon Weigang in 17th place as well for Aston Martin. Wilson Hughes in 16th. Patrick Schipos qualifying out of Q3 for Alpine. It's been a rare occurrence this season for sure. Ulas Yildirim in 14th. Jed Norgrove in 13th for Alpha Tauri. Further up, Alfie Butcher, yesterday's race winner, is in 12th place with Thomas Ronhaar. We just heard from him. Disappointment at not managing to secure a Q3 spot. Nevertheless, I'm sure he'll come back fighting during the course of the race. Starts P11 nonetheless. In P10, we got Brendan Lee, also representing Kick F1 Esports. We also have Frederick Rasmussen in 9th for Red Bull Sim Racing. Not his best qualifying performance, it has to be said. Tom Manley, who was stellar in Q2, decent performance in 8th. Josh Edo creeping into 7th place for Red Bull Sim Racing as well. Barry Burman in 6th for Ferrari with Ismail Fassi again showing his true pace and his true promise as well. Nicholas Longuet here registering P4. Lucas Blakely for now P3. We take a look at the front row as well, which currently says Daniel Berejnay and Jarno Opmeer, but do not forget Jarno Opmeer does have that grid penalty, which will throw a spanner in the works in terms of the starting grid heading into the race this afternoon.
Very nicely done. Thank you very much. Who else stuck out for you in that qualifying session? A wet session, so from the get-go, things were a little bit more up in the air than usual.
I think certainly Ismail Fassi coming off the back of being driver of the day yesterday, a strong performance. Okay, not quite at the front, not getting that point for pole position, but he is in the top 5, and we see that he's not afraid to do something different. He's not afraid to take a different strategy and throw himself in the mix. And also, you said it earlier, he's not afraid to be a bit more aggressive out on track and go for that overtake. So he's going to be our entertainer tomorrow, later on, hopefully, from 5th place. And I'm excited to see what he can do.
A name that keeps coming up over Event 2 so far, Ismail Fassi. Keep mentioning him in every one of the sessions that we've had so far. What about you, George? What stood out for you there?
Yeah, I think going off what Hayden said, I mean, Fassi again proving what he's capable of. I think Ronhaar is going to have to do something a lot different.
Yeah.
I think off the back of starting in P11, I think strategically Kick F1 need to come up with a plan. Obviously, having Brendan Lee in the top 10 is great, albeit there isn't a lot between them. All that's really between them is a gaggle of cars there in the midst of that Q2 scuffle. But I mean, yeah, they're going to have to come up with some idea in order to bridge that gap. It'll be interesting to see as well what Mercedes plan on doing, given the fact that Jarno and Danny Berejnay are at similar portions of the circuit. What are they going to do strategic-wise? Are they going to split the strategies between the two cars and try and avoid any double stacking and any lapse of time during the pit stop phase?
It's going to be very interesting to see how this all plays out. Both our race winners from yesterday starting further back the field for Silverstone later on. But, of course, we still have qualifying at Spielberg to go. We'll be back with you shortly to do that. But for now, it is the moment of Jarno Opmeer, birthday boy, getting pole position. He will be starting P4, but it's still a huge congratulations to him for managing a pole at Silverstone. We'll be back with some driver interviews, and then we'll be getting straight into qualifying at Spa. See you very soon. Guys, great job. Thank you so much. everyone. We are back. We are back, and as you can see, I am joined by Lucas Blakely. Lucas, fantastic qualifying session there around Silverstone. How are you feeling after that one?
Yeah, it's best qualifying we've had since we've got here, so naturally very happy. A little bit, it's sort of like 50-50 because I'm a little bit gutted for Wilson. It was just extremely fine margins.
Yeah.
Only a few, I mean, it's just the way it goes, you know, sometimes you're on the wrong side of, I mean, it happened yesterday actually for him as well, so just a little bit unlucky with the being on the wrong side of the, you know, the cut-off, but naturally quite happy with my performance overall in that Silverstone qualifying. It was actually probably one of the most fun qualifyings I've had. I think Jeddah that we had yesterday, that was just pure stress because there's walls everywhere. But no, that was fun because Silverstone in the wet, how on brand, and then yeah, it was good fun. So,
what about those wet conditions? How did you find it?
Really fun. I mean, I've always enjoyed driving in the wet.
Yeah.
It's something that it sounds very like cliche, but I've done from the whole life from driving in a go-kart and slicks and stuff like that in the wet conditions. So when I saw it was raining, I had like somewhere inside me was sort of cheering a little bit. I was kind of hoping it honestly stayed all the way through the qualifying. We knew that it was probably going to dry up towards that final stage, and what was really important in that session, I want to give credit to our engineers, my engineer Anton, was making sure that we were on the track at the right moment at the right time, because the track was getting drier and drier with just with time. So yeah, we needed to be on the right tires at the right time, and the team helped me to do that. So big thanks to them.
You really were on track at the exact right time. It set you up beautifully for that lap. Of course, you're going to be bumped up a position as well when it comes to the race due to Jarno's penalty. So how are you feeling about starting on the front row? That just opens up so many opportunities for you.
Absolutely. I mean, it's I think it's my first front row of the season, so I think that's certainly
nice.
a good way to start, and on my favourite track as well. I just love Silverstone. It's just such a vibe in general. So yeah, looking forward to the race. Hopefully we can get some strong points. That would be it'd be a dream. But yeah, I've got to make sure that I don't start thinking too far ahead, because we've got we've got another qualifying before that. So
we do have another qualifying for that, and it's Spa, of course, another classic track. How are you feeling ahead of that one?
I think all the drivers would agree that Spa is much more. What's the word? Maybe much more aggressive than Silverstone. Silverstone's much flatter, at least in the game. But then in Spa, it's so many more places to get it wrong. Silverstone's quite. There's only actually a few places where you can really influence the lap time. Spa, one tiny mistake, it affects corner after corner after corner. There's a lot of combinations through there, so it's going to be probably a lot tougher. One of the tougher qualifying. It usually is one of the hardest qualifyings of the season. It's just such a long lap.
Yeah.
So you have to just hang on all the way. But maybe it rains. I mean, it is Belgium, and I would like it to rain. So that would be nice. But in all seriousness, it should be good fun, and hopefully we can just keep keeping ourselves up there in qualifying.
Well, congratulations on qualifying in Silverstone, and good luck for qualifying in Spa. We can't wait to see how you go. Claire, who have you managed to find?
Well, Ariana, I've come down to Aston Martin alongside me, John Evans. John, not the qualifying session you were after. There was no time set at all throughout the whole of qualifying. Can you just talk us through what happened?
Yeah, I had PC problems. I had about 6-7 screen freezes on my lap, and when the competition's that close, you're never going to get out of Q1. So it's a shame we looked quick there, but I mean, we can hope for the race. We've looked at the races so far from yesterday, and they've been carnage, so hopefully we can still do something in the race.
Talk me through yesterday. We didn't have a kind of a chat to you yesterday. What was your kind of view of the whole day?
It was interesting, that's for sure. I mean, Austria was controversial, but I guess it made the racing a bit more exciting with having people from the back come up to the front. And then Jeddah was always going to be carnage with 3-4 people going into every corner. So from a spectator point of view, because I watched Jeddah, it was definitely good to watch.
Well, we've had some great racing, exactly. Today we've got Silverstone, which a lot of the drivers here, it's their home Grand Prix. For yourself, it's your home Grand Prix. It's going to be fun to be out there and do that.
It is. I do love Silverstone. I loved it. I love it in practice. Really flowing track, really enjoyable to drive. So hopefully we can make some positions and hopefully get some points.
And also, it's because it was a wet session. There's a lot of drivers out of position. You've got Thomas Ronhaar starting outside the top 10. Alfie Butcher, who was the winner yesterday. It's sort of like everyone's dotted around in different places. Is that an advantage for sim racing?
I would say, yeah. You have the people, like you say, like Alfie, trying to come through the field, and maybe there'll be a few more crashes. I think the reason that happened was because it was drying up at the end of the session. So whoever was last across the line was probably going to be fastest. So that's why it was so messed up, the field.
Yeah, tyres were definitely, the track was definitely starting to dry at the end. We were told it was meant to be light rain, but it seemed to be quite a deluge of rain at the beginning. Then we go to Spa this afternoon. I mean, it's an iconic track.
It is. If you get Spa right, you're going to be flying. But if you get it wrong, you can be 5-6 tenths off. So, I mean, if you're in the rhythm, you're going to have a good quality, that's for sure.
Okay, John, which are you going to get? Are you going to get it right or wrong?
Well, hopefully right. We'll see.
You'll see. Now, with you, how did you kind of get into your sim racing journey? You're one of the younger drivers. How was that journey for you?
Well, I was at school. Parents bought me the F1 game in 2017. Started league racing. From there, I got better and better. Bought a wheel in 2019. And then 2021 came around, and I really suited the game on the wheel. And then we obviously go through the challenges process. And from there, got top 6, qualified, and then Aston Martin called me up and said, would you like to drive? And here I am.
I mean, what a team to be involved in as well with Aston Martin.
Yeah, I've always said this is my dream team to be a part of, so hopefully in the next few races can do them proud.
How different is it to have a Formula One team backing you?
It definitely changes it. There is a lot more pressure. It makes it so much harder. Like every lap, you're like thinking, I have a team behind me. But you have to try and block that out, and that's when the good laps come, when you just think of nothing.
Okay, well, let's just go back to the final qualifying session of the day today. 2 more again, obviously, tomorrow. How are we feeling about Spa? It's one you like. It's one that if you make a mistake, then you're in trouble. But it is one that can really reward you if you get everything right.
Yeah, Spa is definitely one I've liked since I started the F1 game. It's always been one of my stronger tracks. So hopefully, finally, we can have a good quali.
Fingers crossed. Let's hope we can get you out there. Ariana has headed down to speak to the man that's on pole position.
Thank you so much, Claire. Yep, I am with Danny Berejne, who of course will be lining up P1 after a fantastic qualifying in Silverstone. How are you feeling after that one?
P1, it means it's just like a practice session. No one is ahead of you, so you can do what you prepared for, drive the fastest way possible, do the optimal strategy, hopefully. I'm hoping for a clean, dry race, because that way we are pretty much likely to score some big points today, but you never know what will happen in Silverstone. But I'm really happy about the qualifying session. The thing is that this season I only drive this event one day, and I prepared more than 1,400 hours in the game, and maybe I will drive another day or two in the next event. But what I'm saying is that all this preparation comes down to these final moments of a hectic qualifying like this today, and I'm just really happy to put the lap together when it mattered the most, and I'm really looking forward to try to do the same in Spa-Francorchamps.
Well, it was an amazing session for you. What was it actually like during the session? We had the weather, of course, heavy rain to start with, easing off. What was it like dealing with all of that?
It was not easy, because at the beginning we thought that the whole qualifying session will be wet, and we have to use intermediate tires in every single phase, and we only have 3 of them for the entirety of qualifying. So I had to make it through Q1 with 1 set of fresh set, Q2 the same, and save 1 for Q3. But at the end of the day, I couldn't really use that advantage. And I saw some other teams already using 2 fresh sets in Q1 and then using their last set of fresh set in Q2 at the very last lap when the track improved. And I needed to be up there in the top 15 and then in the top 10 with used tires against the new tires, which is like 2-3 tenths of a lap disadvantage. And I'm just really happy to put those laps together, because I knew that if I just survive and get to the end in Q3, we probably have a chance to have a great qualifying session. But these cut-off sessions are definitely not easy and very, very stressful, especially with the building up traffic. Everyone tries to wait for the track improve the most.
And in terms of that session, as you mentioned, jumping in today, of course, yesterday you weren't racing. What was it like for you to come in and get such a result? Was that a surprise for you, or when you got in, were you feeling quite confident going around Silverstone?
I don't like to be surprised by good results, because I work really, really hard for it. At least I put in the time, and I try to perform at the best of my ability. We have long boot camps with Mercedes at Brackley, at the F1 factory, with many engineers. So I just know that behind all these results, there is a lot of working hours, not only for me, but every member of the team trying to improve, find better setups. So for this reason, I never like to be surprised by a great position, because I think we deserve it, but motorsport is never about deserving. I think everyone on the grid tries to achieve exactly the same thing. It's to win, and win the most amount of qualifyings and the poles. But at the end of the day, it's the stopwatch that decides who gets to start from the front.
Absolutely, and it will be you starting from the front in Silverstone. But let's talk about Spa quickly before we let you go. Very different track, very exciting, another classic. How are you feeling for qualifying around there?
Spa is actually one of my long-time more favorite tracks.
Okay.
But obviously, it doesn't mean that I have more grip there than the others. It's very easy to make mistakes there. Longest circuit of the entire F1 race calendar. 7 meters longer than 7 kilometers. I ran it around the circle last year because I was there watching the race live. It took about 50 couple of minutes. And yeah, I want to do it a little bit quicker, this qualifying session in the virtual Formula 1 cars.
Well, we hope that you will, of course. Thank you so much for chatting with us. Good luck when it comes to qualifying.
Thank you.
At Spa. Really appreciate it. Claire, I think you've managed to track down Nicolas Longe.
Yeah, alongside me, the Ferrari driver, qualified 4th. That's not bad. You must be happy with that.
Thank you very much. That was lovely.
Yeah, I'm reasonably pleased, I think. That was a pretty good qualifying as a team as a whole. Also, Barry being P6 gives us a good chance to score good points for the race. So, yeah.
It was a really strong day for you guys yesterday, but it was a little bit up and down for your teammate. For yourself, how do you feel like the whole day went, the whole event has gone so far?
I mean, I guess it's hard when those days happen, especially for Barry having 2 very good qualifyings and not managing to get many points, maybe just 1 point. It's very easy to just go down a spiral, but it's very important that he resets his mind for today. I think we still showed that we're probably one of the fastest teams in qualifying, and I think the pace must be one of the top ones as well. So I think for Silverstone, having qualified again, very high up, both of us, in the long run, we will do good points and score good races.
And for you guys, you really seem to work as a team as well. Every time I look at you, you're kind of talking to each other a lot more than maybe some of the other ones. Is that a conscious effort from Ferrari?
I think everyone in the grid knows that me and Barry are like the closest friends, and we've been working together for many years now, and we know each other like we're brothers almost. So we know each other, how we act and how we react to stuff when it happens, and we help each other grow together. And yeah, I think working together is probably the most important part of this championship, also for the Constructor Championship. So it's very important, yeah.
How difficult was Silverstone as a session in general for qualifying? The rain came down quite heavy to start the session. The track started drying. It was a difficult one to kind of call because everyone kind of was backing up at certain points as well, trying to get track position.
Yeah, it was chaotic. I think you saw from the spectator point of view that we were all bunched up right before starting our final laps, because at the end of the session is always the fastest, especially when the rain stopped. And we were all just trying to get the best track as possible, and obviously it causes this chaos. But it's very important that you still have to get your lap in, so it's not too crucial if you're starting a little bit in front. But obviously it was super important to always be on top of the rain and how much it would decrease. And I think our engineers did a perfect job and helped us very well telling us what to do. In a situation like this, it gets very confusing and it's very easy to just forget stuff. So it was important to just do a clean lap, because it's very easy to make a mistake when the conditions are changing that much.
And you go from a relatively flat Silverstone to quite a different track at Spa. How do you approach that one for qualifying this afternoon?
Well, first of all, I wouldn't mind if it rained again. Yeah, we quite like the rain.
We'll see what we can do.
Yeah, so hopefully it rains. But if it doesn't rain, I think Spa, the hardest track, I think, in the calendar, one of the hardest, definitely the longest. So the gaps might not be as tight as they have been previously. It's very easy to make a mistake, and going those speeds, it's very easy to also invalidate your lap. So you just need to make sure that you have a good banker in, otherwise it's very stressful and you're a lot of nerves going into your last run in the qualifying session. But I think we're pretty strong there and we're confident.
Well, the nerves are going to be hitting you very, very shortly, because we're going to take a short break. But after that, we've got qualifying ahead of the Spa Grand Prix.
Welcome back to day 2 at event 2. It is qualifying. We're in the midst of things. We've had qualifying at Silverstone. It was Jarno Opmeer who was fastest, birthday boy, but it is Danny Brezhnev who will be starting on pole for the race. And now we turn our attention to qualifying at Spa, one of the classic tracks of the calendar. I'm Mariana Bravo. I'm joined once again by Hayden Gullis and George Morgan. Guys, first part of action for the day is done, but now we're gearing up for another qualifying session, and it's Spa.
Yeah, very good circuit. It's Spa-Francorchamps. There's a long lap. It's very easy to make a mistake, and around there, if you hook it up perfectly, you're out for an absolute flyer. If you get, maybe one section wrong and you're not in that flow, you could be 5/10 down. We're going to be seeing larger gaps than I think we've seen previously in qualifying sessions so far this event.
And we had some changing weather conditions in Silverstone. Of course, it was heavy rain to start with, easing off towards the end. But Spa is an interesting one because we also get different conditions quite frequently at Spa. But because of the length of the track, it can be rainy in one part and dry in another. So the drivers are going to be thinking about that as well, aren't they?
They are somewhat of a microclimate over at Spa-Francorchamps. We have seen torrential weather in portions of the circuit, and then on the other half, I mean, it could be dry. But yeah, it's one of the longest circuits on the calendar, certainly here in F1 sim racing, that's for sure. And it has to be said, you've got to be the complete driver to race around this track. Plenty of fast speed zones, some heavy braking zones, and a very technical Sector 2, which can very easily throw a driver off.
It can indeed. I mean, we do have a couple of drivers who have won here. Repeat winners, shall we say. Danny Brezhnev, who of course will have a spring in his step after qualifying at Silverstone, and Freddie Rasmussen as well, who's also got 2 wins under his belt here. So are these guys that you're keeping an eye out for in quali?
Yeah, certainly. I remember a year, I think it might have been 2019 season, they were working together, breaking away from the pack, switching over positions just to really pull themselves away, and then had a battle between the two of them for the fight for the win. And they've always run well around here. I've known Danny Brezhnev through the years, and he's always loved racing at Spa, and I'm sure he's going to be pushing to put himself at the front once again.
I think so too. Who are you keeping your eye out on? We've seen Ismail Farsi on fantastic form all of Event 2 so far.
Yeah, we have. Plenty of the new blood really starting to show their quality. Same for Tom Manley as well. I mean, looking at what he achieved in Silverstone in Q2 was truly remarkable. I think also you've got to look at Barry Burremand, someone who was a race winner here last season. Brezhnev and Rasmussen, alluding back to who you guys were talking about, back-to-back race winners from 2018-19. Brezhnev, you then had Rasmussen taking it in 2020, 2021, before Barry would take his first race win here. It is certainly a huge test, but same time, so you can see these little micro patterns starting to show. But yeah, we could see another Ismail Farsi Stella showing. Who knows?
And we are well into things with Event 2 now. Of course, we've had all of yesterday. We had Jeddah, we had Spielberg. We're one qualifying session down now as well. The drivers must really be starting to settle into this new format. I was speaking to some people in the break there, and they were saying they actually really enjoy it because it's just constant. You're constantly on your A game.
Yeah, I suppose you don't get that time to kind of dwell on it. We saw Wilson Hughes last time in Event 1, didn't have a fantastic performance, was very upset about his performance there, but then you have the whole winter to kind of dwell on it, and you don't have that chance to then prove yourself once again. Whereas, for example, Alfie Butcher, not a great qualifying yesterday in Spielberg, and then bounced back and had a race win in the race, and then obviously back-to-back, he didn't have a great race in Jeddah either. Bounce back straight away in a race. So they are going to enjoy this environment, not to think about it too much, just get straight back into the action, do what they do best.
And that's what we absolutely love as well. Now, we often talk about the drivers, but of course, there's a whole team around the drivers that are helping and make magic happen. And we had the opportunity to hear a little bit from one of the Ferrari engineers, Simon Kulik. Let's see what he had to say.
As we have the best drivers and best engineers in the world, the margins are so close. We need to always find something to be better than the other teams. And as well for the race, we have all the graphs with the tires and all the strategies prepared before on the boot camp. We can compare telemetry, let's say in the quali between our drivers compared to the ones from the boot camp. We can see where they are gaining, when they are losing, to make them feel more comfortable in the actual quali. We are kinda here also to calm down the drivers, to like make them feel very comfortable, because we see all the data. They sometimes they feel they are like lost, they will lose the positions, but we have everything planned here. We are also like here when they are getting overtaken. We are here to calm them down. We know each other very good. We have like team buildings prepared by our team. So I think the chemistry in the team is very good, and we always try to help each other. So the emotions, of course, are there, but if we work as a team and as a friends, it's working like it's helping us. We are ready for all the strategies. We are, of course, trying to like sneak into other teams' boxes and see what strategies they are doing. Everyone knows the game. It's so hard to like get the better strategy to like gain more than 5 positions, but we are here to do it, and that's our job basically, and that's where we put the effort on the bootcamp with the drivers, and let's see what we can do.
Very interesting. They're trying to sneak into other people's areas and get a few tips. Fascinating, that, isn't it? It's interesting to hear from other members of the team and see the roles that they're playing, isn't it?
Yeah, well, they're kind of at an advantage. If you look at the setup of the studio right now, they're at the tail end, facing all the drivers forward, where you can look over at their screen, see what they're doing with setups. You even see it where you get team members who come out of their desk behind the screens, then just try and block their drivers' screens. They're changing their setups. The drivers behind can't actually, have a little sneaky look. Okay, you're doing that with your brake balance. You're doing that with your front aerodynamics. So, yeah, they've had that advantage there, but sure. I mean, I don't blame them, because you want to get every advantage that you possibly can, and you want to see what everybody else is doing. But it's always good to have those guys behind the scenes to really help you as a driver. Absolutely.
And he also mentioned there the importance of talking to the drivers, calming them down, really supporting them with the emotional, mental side of things as well, which is a huge, huge part of sim racing.
It is, because, and especially this week, because it's such a long format. We've got 2 races a day for the next 3 days. Well, of course, we just come off the back of having 2 yesterday, so 6 races in 1 week, not to mention the 6 qualifying sessions. Of course, then on top, Q1, Q2, Q3. And we spoke to Brett Koch about similar things, trying to prepare the drivers, get them ready, usher in words of support, at the same time provide aftercare if things don't go well. These are things that are absolutely imperative. At the end of the day, it nurtures a driver, pushes them to that next level, and allows them to learn with every step they take.
Indeed. Now, we want to hear from you guys and hear how you're enjoying Event 2 of F1 Esports. Make sure you follow us on social media. You can follow us at F1 Esports on all the usual big platforms, and use the hashtag F1 Esports to keep up to date with us. Let us know what you're thinking. Let us know your thoughts and feelings. We are, of course, keeping an eye on the hashtag, and we enjoy reading everything you have to say. So please do get in touch. But as you will know, we have had a lot of talk about one particular driver so far, and that is Ismail Farsi. He has been on fine form so far across Event 2, and we had the pleasure of hearing from the man himself. Let's see what he had to say.
Yeah, and we're coming on to the final lap now very shortly. Ron Hart loses out twice. A fantastic move from Ismail Farsi, however, who will go up to the line. He takes P3, but Freddie Rasmussen.
I'm super happy, obviously. First podium in my second ever sim racing race. What can I say? I'm very happy for myself, for the team. I think we deserve these points. I've been feeling very confident here around Jeddah, so I showed everyone that I can be up there. I think Jeddah is my best track, so all the remaining tracks, my goal is to at least be in the top 6, top 7.
There's rain on the circuit, and look at Fassi being thrown to the outside, and Thomas Ronard defended to the end, but Fassi loves the switchback. He tries to find his way through. Fassi, back-to-back P3s, a second podium of his career.
What a drive.
Look, I think for Ismail, I mean, I've worked with him for many years now. And when I joined Williams Esports, it was one of my first priorities to bring him into the team. I knew the talent that he was.
Well, there you have it. A lot of confidence and belief in Ismail Farsi. Little wave there from the man himself. So we are not far off now, our second qualifying session of the day. It is Spa, as we've said, classic, iconic, mixture of long straights, challenging parts as well, with some turns and corners and challenging sequences. What should we be looking out for in this quali session, though?
I guess just track limits is the main factor that we have been seeing over the course of the event so far. There are a few sort of occasions. I say Le Com is probably the most difficult, because you want to be maximising the amount of time you're finding through the corner. But if you just push it that little bit too far, you can overextend, you can cut the corner, or maybe go a little bit too far out wide and extend the corner and get an invalidation. And within the game, it's not a case of, oh, you've lost us a few little bits of time there. If you lose a lot of time, you get away with it. But if you lose a tiny amount of time, you can still get invalidated. So they do have to watch out for that section.
And George, what about from your perspective?
Yeah, I think with the variation, I think is huge. And I think alluding to track limits, Pouon especially, you can run so wide there. The understeer can really send you quite far out. And then, of course, you've got the Lafanier chicane, the raised curbs coming through, can very easily pivot a car's rear end. And then you've got Campus and Stavelo, again, a section of track where you can get drifted wide and at the same time invalidate your lap.
Well, many things to keep an eye on there. I'm just looking at time. We've got less than 2 minutes before we get into qualifying. So, as always, that's my cue to exit and to leave it to you guys to take us through qualifying at Spa. Take it away. Enjoy. I know that I certainly will. We'll be back with you very shortly, guys. Over to the guys.
Thank you very much, Ariana. Bravo. Sensational as always as we now move across to the woods, the forests of Stavelo, Hayden Gullis, a circuit that is steeped in Formula One history, opening back in August of 1921. 20 turns will take the drivers through this Belgian track as we now look to enlist our starting grid for the race this afternoon. Of course, still plenty of peaks and troughs. The elevation aplenty as you make your way up the hill out of Eau Rouge and Radion through the Kemmel straight through towards Les Combes, and then you have the descent coming off the precipice that is Pouon, heading down the slalom, heading through the Lafanier chicane before finding your way through Blanchimont and the bus stop chicane. It's like poetry, Hayden.
It is indeed, and it is one of the most beautiful racetracks they have ever made in the history of racetracks. It's an incredible place to come to. You've got these fast cars flying through these corners, and you've got this beautiful nature all around you. Lucas Blakely just taking a moment just to get in the zone, just nice and relaxed at the moment. A little smile on his face, though, there as he's getting ready for this qualifying session. It's going to be interesting to see whether we're going to get another wet session. Of course, of course, the weather is on dynamic, so it's going to be completely random. The guys will not know what the weather's going to be doing until they load into that session. So they would have obviously done a lot of prep. It's not just a case of they're just doing dry practice when they're at home. They're going to be doing wet practice, mixed conditions practice. What happens if it goes from wet to dry, from dry to wet? How quickly is that transition going to be? So they're going to be fully prepared for every occasion. But just because they've done all the preparation doesn't necessarily mean they might excel in it. So some drivers are going to be like, hey, you know what? I'm not that quick here in the dry. I want a bit of wet conditions to kind of equalize it. But others are going to be like, no, I want the dry because this is where I'm quickest.
Yeah, and you might find that certain drivers rise to the occasion. I mean, we look back at that qualifying session we had at Britain. We know there's one king of the wet by the name of Jarno Otmir, who of course set the fastest lap. Won't take pole, unfortunately, due to the fact of the penalty, but still, the pace is there. Danny Berejnay, though, excelling in those conditions too, in those changeable weather conditions, which are going to be, I would imagine, somewhat of a factor at Spa. It is a common factor. Whether it is or not, obviously still left to be decided. Aston Martin will be hoping to take full advantage of this. This is a track I think Simon Weigand can really, sort of launch onto.
Yeah, he tweeted after the last qualifying session that he's not been happy with his performance so far. As it looks like we're loading into the session, and there's stormy conditions, and I have heard a big groan around the studio as all of the drivers have just found out, and there it is. There are the current conditions, stormy conditions, 90% humidity. It's 18 degrees out on track as well. Track temperature 21. It's very low at the moment, but yeah, that groan, no one's happy with that.
Well, there was one pairing that were happy. The two Ferrari drivers gave each other a high five off the back of that. So whether it's the case that Ferrari have got something up their sleeve here, I'm not quite sure. But Barry looked very happy considering what could be on offer.
He's giving us a love heart.
He's giving us a love heart as well.
The raid.
He's delighted about what we're about to see here at Spa-Francorchamps. We did see a slight sigh as well from Josh Edo. He had some difficulties yesterday in qualifying. Recovered well, though, back at Spielberg, Hayden, but it was a scare.
Yeah, he'll be looking to avoid that because there's not really too many places that you want to be caught out by something like that around Spa. Because yes, okay, it's not quite a street circuit, but one little mistake, especially in wet conditions, you're just going to skate off and end up in a barrier. But all drivers out on wet tyres at the moment. Obviously, the correct tyre to be on. We saw it in Silverstone, where it was obviously intermediate conditions and the drivers are going out on wets to test it. It'll be interesting to see whether this track is going to clear up. On our data, it's going from stormy conditions to stormy conditions. So it looks like no sign of this rain clearing up any time soon. But we've got one of the Ferraris out on track, Nicholas Longay, all the cars going out on track at the moment. So maybe just in case the track's going to get a little bit worse, because we don't usually see this flurry of cars going out straight away in the session. Whether that's the case to just get a feel of the track, see how these conditions feel underneath them and build upon it from there? Or is it going to get slightly wetter as the session goes on?
Well, I mean, this is the first time they would have touched the track, I suppose, since free practice this morning. So naturally, some of the drivers may be feeling better about this than others. It is a very busy circuit. There are only 2 cars remain in the pit lane, and very quickly they've gone out as well. So it is a full-on flurry of 20 cars now making their way around the circuit of Spa. Of course, some drivers, we alluded to the fact that some are better in the wet than others, but full-on storm conditions around an 18 degrees Celsius air temperature circuit with 21 degrees track temperature, though at this point the only serious issue is the damp conditions that surround them. The stormy weather as the rain continues to plummet on the circuit here.
On an outlap.
Freddie Rasmussen putting the burners on, maybe trying to put a little bit of heat in.
Yeah, he's really pushing it at the moment. He's really trying to get this this qualifying underway. Whether that's the case, that's an indicator to us in the comms block that this track is getting wetter as the session goes on. And we've not really seen it so far, where drivers are in a rush to get lap times in. But Freddie Rasmussen looks like he's in a rush. Never mind. Straight like in the pit lane. He wanted to spook everyone. He wanted to think that maybe he had more data than everybody else. But he's like, psych, in the box I come. And that is that over. Will everybody else be following him into the box? Yep, there we go. Oh, no. That was, of course, because it's such a tight corner at the bus stop. The Ferrari driver getting out as wide as possible, looking like you're coming into the pit lane, but then hook it back round to give you basically the longest straight. Because if you hit the apex through that last corner, the straight is slightly shorter than what you would have, so you want that to open up and start that lap. Maybe Freddie had a little bit of damage, or maybe had a mistake, something like that happened on his opening out lap. And that is why he was in such a rush to get back in the pit lane, to get out on track as early as possible. We'll have to see what happens to Freddie Rasmussen. Of course, Mr. Consistency usually, not a great result for him yesterday in Spielberg. Obviously the race win in Jeddah. Still up there in the championship, of course. We're watching on board with Nicolas Longuet, who's setting his first lap at the moment, going through that tricky Lecombe section, really riding over the inside of the curb. It's looking like he's off the track, but he's not. He's got his wheels just on the white line and just over the white line there on the exit of Lecombe. Still within the track limits for Nicolas Longuet. Through the corner that just seems to go on forever. It's so easy to get on the throttle early through that one, but if you do that, you're just going to understeer and you're going to get out wide and you're going to ruin your whole lap. Nice and tidy though so far from Nicolas Longuet, showing that they are enjoying these full wet, these stormy conditions here in Spa-Francorchamps. Through P1, nice and tidy lap so far there from Nicolas Longuet.
Yeah, very interesting to note that Freddie Rasmussen was the only car that decided to come into the pits. So whether he was looking to make an adjustment or whether he just was happy to allow the conditions to carry their way out through the entirety of this session, obviously may suggest that we aren't going to see any necessary changes in terms of the conditions. But Nicolas Longuet still going for it here. Still amassing green sectors as you'd expect for his very first run. Of course, a blank canvas in terms of where the times sit at this stage. But Longuet looking to hook things up, heading through towards Blanchimont this time. Relatively full on the throttle. He might lift off a touch just to avoid going too far and rumbling over the white strip as he now makes his way in towards the bus stop chicane. Heavy braking zone, the heaviest braking zone here as well at this very circuit, as now Longuet puts his foot to the floor in a bid to nestle in a decent time to kick us off. A 1:54.623. Danny Berejnet coming through bus stop. His teammate Jarno Watmir now trumping Longuet for that P1 place. 1:54.259. Berejnet now also crossing the line, makes it a Mercedes 1-2 immediately from the get-go as we now rejoin Thomas Ronhaar, who's making his way through bus stop now.
Yeah, the Mercedes boys looking very quick today in the qualifying session so far. Already up at the top of the board. Here it is, Thomas Ronhaar though, round the final corner. Disappointing qualifying. Alfie Butcher though puts it right at the top with a 54.1, and there goes Thomas Ronhaar into the 53s. Is this track ramping up, or is that just the pace that Thomas Ronhaar has in hand? And like I say, disappointing qualifying for himself last time out in Silverstone. First time he'd ever got knocked out in Q2 and not made it to Q3, so he'll be back with vengeance, looking to put it at the top of the board.
Yep, the sole 153 on the board for now. John Evans now making his way across the line. Let's see what he can muster in this initial stint. 11th fastest, goes ahead of Philip Prejneda, and more will come across too. Simon Weigang, his teammate, 10th fastest, with Ulaş Özildirim in 9th place, the Turkish driver in the top 10. We still haven't seen a few cars though register their laps. Josh Ido coming into the pits along with his teammate Freddie Rasmussen. Wilson Hughes also coming in. Thomas Ronhaar still out on track. The fastest lap to boot as well, and convincing lap as well. The sole man where he lies at this current time with a 1:53.904 and over 0.2 of a second, very nearly 2.25 tenths faster than Alfie Butcher in second place. You've got to give Butcher credit. Decent first lap.
Yeah, and track's getting faster, George. Looking at our data, it's going from stormy conditions to wet conditions. I'm looking over at Freddie Rasmussen's screen, and he had the tyre selection screen up. He was looking and he was filtering between wets and inters, because as he's doing that, the time is changing consistently through this session. It's definitely going to be getting drier, but he's just waiting for that moment that the intermediates look like they're better. I'm looking at his screen right now. He's exiting the pit lane. It's time for intermediates, and we're going to go faster in this Q1 session.
So there we have it. We can see, in fact, on our map, in our telemetry, the conditions are changing, folks, just a little bit. So that suggests that Red Bull, they made the right call, obviously not going out and setting that lap initially. Of course, though, we still have 10 minutes to go.
Yep.
Though we may still have 10 minutes to go, it's not a lot when you consider a wet lap is generally around 2 minutes. You know, it's not too far off. It's mere seconds, you know. So at this stage, 10 minutes can disappear in the blink of an eye.
This Q1 session is going to be a carbon copy of what we saw in Q2 at Silverstone. It's all about being the last person to cross the line to start your lap. That's going to give you the best conditions out on track. It's going to give you the best chance to put yourself up at the top and not get knocked out in Q1. We'll have to see how the track conditions will change as we go into Q2 and then Q3. Currently, it is still going to be full wet conditions on the inters, but as I said earlier, these intermediates seem to have a better range of working in the heavier wet conditions. When it's full stormy conditions, no, you definitely want to be on the full extreme wets. But when it's full wet conditions, you can get away with intermediates being the better tyre there.
Yeah, we have got confirmation the session is drying, folks, and obviously that goes to show with the intermediate tyres now on the cars. Freddie Rasmussen now heading through Qual, and will register his first time on this compound too. Needs to try and at least enlist something to give himself somewhat of a delta to work with for one final run deeper into this Q1 session. Of course, remember, the bottom 5 will be eliminated heading through into Q2. Imperative for a number of these names. Again, though, another name that frequently sees himself at the bottom, yet to nestle a time in the closing stages of this session, is Lucas Blakely, currently sitting in P20, but we know what he did last time, from 20th to 1st for that brief moment.
I think for him, waiting until the end of the session is not really a worry for many people. He's not actually out on track at the moment. He's currently, I can see over on his screen, he's just watching the session, watching the other cars, watching what his teammates up to. He can always just, you know, move his head over to the side and have a look at his screen, but he can also do that from his pit garage as well. So watching on board now with Freddie Rasmussen, who's just building up those tyre temperatures on the brake and on the throttle at the same time, trying to get the brake temperature up to build up the inside carcass temperature of the tyres to get ready for that flying lap here in Q1. No time yet set on the board for Freddie Rasmussen. He's going to be one of the first drivers on the intermediates to come across the line. He's going to set the lap up, and as I said earlier, getting right out to the right-hand side, looking like he's coming into the pit lane to maximise his straight and head on to a fast lap here at Spa-Francorchamps. On the intermediates, slight wet conditions. Let's see what he can do as he heads down into the first corner now. Onto the brakes, hooks it up through the first corner of La Source there. Don't touch that sausage curve on the outside because it will unsettle the car, especially in these wet conditions, and you're going to lose a heap of time. But it's a very, very important corner because it's such a long, straight section. It won't quite be flat. Or will he? Is his foot to the floor? No, he has to lift off slightly as he goes through Eau Rouge and Radion up there. No DRS, of course, activators. We're in these wet conditions, going down the Kemmel Straight and then into the tricky Le Con section. It's at the start of the lap, but it can very easily be where you ruin it. Through the right and then through the left, where you've got to carry as much of the curb as possible. That was perfect from Freddie Rasmussen. Again on the right and not too much on the left. And again, once again, perfect from Mr. Consistency in towards this tricky corner. Hard the right-hand side. And you just got to be patient. You've got to wait getting on the throttle before you get it back over to the right-hand side as you go downhill now. Doesn't look that steep here on the game, but when you're there in real life, this is one trek up a hill, George.
Yeah, definitely is. Now sleuthing through Qual. He'll make his way into the next chicane at Le Fagnier. He's got a little bit of traffic to deal with. They are grouping up, heading through the final sector, but they're all getting set to go on faster runs here at this point. But we have got a gaggle of intermediate tyres now making their way around this track, Freddie Rasmussen being one of them. Of course, he's got his teammate out on track doing the same thing too, Josh Ido. Of course, both Red Bulls would love to ascend to the top and do exactly what Mercedes did at Silverstone earlier on this morning, or earlier on this afternoon, I should say, as we now see Rasmussen make his way through towards the final bend here. Well, the final bend's out of Blanchimont. He's got bus stop to come, needs to prime the braking point in order to try and see himself higher up this timing tower. Of course, currently sitting in P15, owing to the point that he has not yet enlisted a time, but on intermediate tyres, surely he'll trump the wet. Across the line he'll go, and fastest, a 151, 190. In comes Brendan Lee, two-time champion, goes to P2, second fastest for the Kick F1 sim racing driver, just over 2.5 tenths of a second between Ps1 and Ps2. Here comes Jed Norgrove.
Yeah, here he comes, part of the Red Bull family, heading into the last couple of corners now. Jed Norgrove on the brakes, currently in P18 in that danger zone, although we've still got 6 minutes remaining on the clock. Back through the left and then on the throttle, but don't let the car snap away from you. On the throttle, across the line, and it's good enough for P3. Wilson Hughes with a fantastic lap, putting himself into second place, but there's that lap from Freddie Raspin into the 51.1s. Wilson Hughes 51.2 there. Now we've got Nicholas Longuet and Barry Borman. Both of those guys very excited that we had wet conditions. Let's see if they can get out of Q1, because it'll be slightly embarrassing for them when they were very happy about these conditions and wouldn't make it into Q2. But here we go, Nicholas Longuet round the final corner now, back on the throttle, and is that time going to be good enough to put himself near the front of the grid? And it's better than that. It's right at the front of the grid. It's on the top, and there goes Danny Beresney to demote him to P2. But a fantastic lap there from the Mercedes driver.
That's a huge lap from Danny Beresney. Has managed to go nearly, well, just over 4 tenths quicker than Nicholas Longuet in second place. So a great showing. Barry Burman next, Longuet's teammate. Of course, sat side by side together. The question is, will they be sat side by side in the timing tower? They certainly will. Second and third fastest between them, but 28 thousandths separating Burman and Beresney. So Ferrari getting closer. Fassi to the top with a 50.5. He has now enlisted a time that has put himself to the front. Jarno Opmeer, the Flying Dutchman, goes second fastest. Two Mercedes second and third, with Ferrari fourth and fifth.
Track conditions are getting faster, George. The track is drying up out there, and you can certainly see that with the lap times that are coming in. We're into the 50.5s, and we're probably going to get into the 49s at some point later on in this Q1 session. It's getting very quick out there, and a few guys bailing out. I did see Thomas Ronhaar in the background as someone came across the line. He darted into the pit lane, not too sure whether he invalidated on his lap or he decided, you know what, let's get myself ready for one last go at it later on. We've seen this before with Thomas Ronhaar. I remember last season and at Spa, he just kept on invalidating in every session, apart from the last lap when it mattered, and he was right up at the front by the end of it. I think he might have even got pole position.
Yeah, well, like currently as it stands, looking in this top 10, there's a couple of names that are starting to appear up. Simon Weigang, P6 at the moment. Obviously, would love to make it through to Q2. That would be a huge result for him. And not only that, Wilson Hughes bouncing back after the disappointment in our previous qualifying session at Silverstone. Let's see if he can carry this momentum onwards heading into Q2. First of all, he needs to get there. Ismail Fassi, though, up at the front, once again showing his true pace and quality. I mean, a time that is 74 thousandths, albeit faster than Jarno Opmeer, the Flying Dutchman, two-time champion, of course. But it's a 50.5, a brilliant lap. We all thought that Danny Beresney's was great. We thought Nicholas Longuet's was great. We've just taken another level. Track definitely seemingly improving.
Yeah, we talk a lot about Alfie Butcher, and he is one of the nicest guys on the grid, and he has got some incredible pace. But I feel like Ismail Fassi, whilst we have bigged him up and we've given him driver of the day, he's gone under the radar in terms of the difference between him and Alfie Butcher. And I think, Ismail Fassi has been proving that he's a sensational driver that we should not undermine. Not only is he a rookie in this field, not only has he got 2 podiums. His qualifying, yes, okay, he might not be usually in those top 2 positions like Alfie Butcher has, but in the races, he's been there. And of course, that's where the points are. Yes, okay, you get a point now for pole position, but it's only 1. You want to maximise the points you can get yourself in the race, and Fassi has certainly been doing that. I think he's certainly one to watch, and the fact that he's put himself at the front is an incredible feat. Of course, the track is drying, and we're going to have some really good conditions in Q2 because the rain is getting lighter, and it is really improving. It's really ramping up at this stage. I'm just trying to look at the moment, and I can't see if there's actually any rain falling. Okay, slight rain still falling out on track at the moment, so it's not quite getting to those drier, overcasty conditions, but I don't think we're too far away from it.
No, and I think important to note as well, we've got plenty of drivers who we should expect to see at the top end who have only enlisted wet times at this point, and they haven't necessarily needed to go out on the intermediates until this very last moment. They want the best conditions possible for these green banded tyres because they've got a delta to match against. They've got that. They don't need to worry about it, though. Patrick Sheepos and Lucas Blakely, once again, Blakely leaving himself in a position where effectively he can't he's got to leave it everything here to the very last minute. Ismail Fassi retiring, interesting point of note.
Yeah, and I think both Mercedes drivers are... No, one Mercedes driver is actually leaving at the moment. I'm not too sure whether Jana Watmir is also going to pull the trigger and retire from this session as well. He's still in the box. There's about 1 minute 40 remaining, which in my view is far too late, because it's about 1 minute. It's 1 minute 50 anyway in these conditions. So there's no way you're going to get out of the pit lane and get a lap in. I think Danny Berezne might actually be cutting it quite close as well. He's going to have to really push on this lap if he wants to make it to the line. But yeah, I think Jana Watmir and both Danny Berezne, they are on an out lap, but I'd be very surprised if they actually make it to the line, knowing that there's only 1 minute 15 left at the moment. Will Lewis has retired from the session. Not too sure, because he's definitely not going to be feeling confident with that P13 lap. Whether something's happened over there, as I can hear, there's a little bit of anger in the studio as well. Somebody must have made a mistake. But let's get ready for some final runs here in Q1. We've got Wilson Hughes we're going to be riding on board with. Intermediate tyres on the car. He's currently sitting in P9 in this qualifying session. It's not quite safe, but it's not quite at risk as someone like Alfie Butcher or Thomas Ronhaar. So he's going to be trying to get himself further up the field, especially as this track is going to be ramping up at this stage. As you can see, look at the delta. Has Ismail Fassi, Jana Watmir and Danny Berezne, if they have cut it too late, have they made a mistake? Because right now Wilson Hughes, he's got 2/10 up on his delta. He's gone through the La Source corner, which is the first braking zone. There's not really too much that's happened on the lap so far. So we'll really be able to tell this time around as we go through Les Combes whether the track is getting drier and whether it's massively improving. And it is. It's now 3/10. He's going to go 4/10. He's now going to go 5/10. It is really ramping up. And I think Ismail Fassi, he might have just got this wrong. We'll have to wait and see what everybody else can do. Obviously, Will Lewis is going to be somebody who will be out and will not be able to jump him anyway. But Wilson Hughes is looking strong on this lap so far.
Yeah, I would say that he has made a mistake, because look at this, 1.2 seconds improvement here so far. Simon Weigang damaging his front wing in the pit lane. That was the anger that we heard earlier on. Simon Weigang less than happy with what has occurred, and we did allude to the fact that, of course, he was in the top 10. He still is at this moment in time, but that surely is going to change very, very quickly. You can just see now, 2 seconds improvement here for Wilson Hughes. So definitely, I would say, Fassi in trouble as we now see him make his way through. Purple in the second sector here for Wilson Hughes as well. So he's finding yet more time. The Scotsman looking to put in a last blast here.
Both Mercedes didn't make it to the line. Both Mercedes will not be improving on this lap, so they're going to be counting on drivers improving. John Evans looking like he's currently at the top of the board. A 2-second improvement. They've got it completely wrong. What has Fassi done in this qualifying session? Wilson Hughes rounds the final corner. It is going to be an improvement. It's top of the board. We can see a drastic change in this qualifying session.
We certainly will. Wilson Hughes laying down the foundations of what could be yet a pole lap, or certainly a P1 lap here in Q1. John Evans currently sits P2 as well, just a few tenths away off the pace of the top spot. Patrick Schipos, Alpine have a great chance here to potentially lift themselves into Q2. Through comes Schipos now. What can he deliver as he makes his way down the home straight? This could be massive as he comes across the line. Schipos goes to the top with a 48.3. Tom Manley, we saw him go faster in wet conditions in Q2. Prejnader makes it Alpine 1 and 3. Tom Manley to the top. The F1 Esports Challengers Xbox champion, quickly trumped by the PC champion Alfie Butcher. Freddie Rasmussen goes fastest. The Great Dane with Jed Norgrove in second place. Two-time champ Brendan Lee. Ulysses Yildirim in second. Ido jumps into third. Thomas Ronhaar, the Dutch sensation, in third place now too, relegating Ido down to fourth. And take a look at those bottom 5. Mercedes, both drivers out of qualifying. Ismail Fassi out as well. A major error on the part of the Williams driver. Simon Weigang after the pit wall crash. And Will Lewis out of the session. Disaster for Williams and Mercedes.
Yeah, Fassi momentarily out of the rig there, but got back in it quite quickly, but obviously not happy with what happened. John Evans right on the cusp, but he is through. Obviously both Mercedes drivers just getting it wrong in the amount of time they had left in the session. I looked at the timing screen. Yeah, they had like 1 minute 40 when they came out the pit lane. They were never making it. Even if they cut every single corner around it, I don't think they still would have made it to the line. And then you don't get to build up that tyre temperature, of course. But Fassi, understandably, massively disappointed because he had the pace to put himself right up at the front. It was a stonker of a lap when he did go out in that mid-station. Look at the Mercedes drivers, both of them extremely disappointed. And just look at the difference between these two qualifying sessions. Both Mercedes drivers, you look back an hour ago, were over the moon with the result. And now massive disappointment for both of them.
From the greatest of highs to the lowest of lows, it has to be said, Mercedes feeling the pain, Jarno Opmeer and Danny Berejnay losing out after just not managing to cross the timing line. Berejnay's face says it all, as does Ismail Fassi's. He opted for the retirement before setting that one last lap, thinking he was safe. Unfortunately, he wasn't. Rasmussen will make his way through. I mean, some of the names, Alpine, they'll take this one. Yeah, Hayden.
Yeah.
This is massive. Q2 for them.
Someone's disappointment is obviously going to be beneficial to somebody else, and Alpine are absolutely running with it at the moment. They're going to be ecstatic with this result in this qualifying session so far. But now we get into the dry conditions. Now the Alpines really have to try and prove themselves, but both Williams drivers out. Will Lewis as well. I'm interested to see what happened with him, why he retired from the box, because he definitely wasn't safe. Okay, Fassi, usually in these circumstances in qualifying, you can kind of understand why they're gonna retire early to save some tyres, but it was never going to be happening. It was definitely drying. We're even to overcast moments at the moment. So the track was really drying up as that session went through, and there are our eliminated drivers. Fassi, Jarno Opmeer, Danny Berejnay, Simon Weigang. The front wing damage is very easy to do as you exit the pit lane. You have to do it straight away, an immediate hairpin, and he must have just, I don't know, whether it's just lapse of concentration or something like that, just tagged the wall. But I believe Claire Cottingham has gone and found Jarno Opmeer to go and chat with him.
I have indeed found Jarno. I spoke to you earlier. We were related, pole position. Speaking to you now, and it was just a miscalculation.
Yeah, it was. It's just very unfortunate. I asked my engineer on the in-lap if I already had my questions if we're going to make it, or on my first push lap on intermediates. They were all confident we were going to make it. I just already felt like we were probably not going to make it, but yeah, that's how it is. Sometimes everyone makes mistakes. So yesterday I made lots of mistakes in qualifying. Today our engineers did. It's just how it goes sometimes. But yeah, Spa is a long track, a lot of slipstreaming. So we'll see how it goes. It's going to be a very hard one. But yeah, all we can do is try.
Bad luck. We look forward to seeing you fight through that pack, though.
Thank you.
Right, guys, back to you.
Well, it has to be said, from, like you said, some pitfalls come great success. Certainly if you're Alpine, you're delighted. If you're Mercedes and Williams, quite the opposite. But as you can see, we've got Q2 now in full swing. The car's already making their way out onto the track. And you might have noticed as well, no signs of raindrops landing onto the circuit. We have now got dry conditions. A vastly different set of affairs. Yep. We're now seeing the red-banded soft tyres out on track, Hayden.
Yeah, and they're all going to have so many sets of soft tyres to their name now, because obviously they didn't get to run them in Q1, so all of their tyres are brand new, and we're going to get some really fast laps in as Nicolas Longuet is getting a move on at the moment in this Q2 session. It'll be interesting to see whether they go straight out for laps or whether they do what they have done previously, or they just like to get either that bank lap in or sometimes just come into the box straight away. But it wouldn't make sense on brand new soft tyres doing that straight away. But here we go. Tight on the... Would it come into the pits? Yeah, he does. Okay, so he's into the box. He's just making sure that everything is working fine, because there's a little bit of time there between Q1 and Q2. Just want to make sure there's no problems with the car and make sure everything is working fine, and obviously make sure everybody's sorted in the engineer room, because obviously they have all the data, and that's what they're going to be trying to do to try and get right. And we saw it get it wrong, and sadly that just happens. You know, sometimes with such a big team, mistakes happen within a team, and they just miscalculated how much time was left there for the Mercedes team. But we'll be looking to see who can benefit from those guys out. Obviously, Mercedes right up at the top of the Constructors' Championship, so this is going to look really good for Kick, who are fighting with them in that.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, they've only had experience so far in this competitive session with wet weather tyres. Both wets and intermediates used in our previous session of qualifying. Now we're changing to the drier compounds and already setting some outlaps just to get a read on the track, and some vital data as well from those behind the scenes for each of the teams too. So a great chance here for Red Bull to score some huge points against Mercedes. Obviously there's a huge teams championship fight going on right now. Simon Weigang understandably deflated. We just saw a picture through our pan shot here as we take a look through the arena, and I'm sure some glum faces here. I mean, we've got Mercedes and Williams right behind us here, both drivers who have, you know, from each team that have really been successful over the course of the start of this season. The fact that they haven't got any representatives in this session or either in Q3.
Yeah.
It's somewhat of a crime, really, Hayden.
Well, yeah, like I said, I'd really like to find out from someone like Will Lewis, for example, because this was a really good opportunity for himself coming into it so late on, not having the practice time of everybody else. So no matter what happens, he's still doing a fantastic job because it is so difficult to adapt to this brand new environment compared to being at home. But this could have been a fantastic opportunity, especially with both Mercedes being out there and your teammate making that mistake, to see whether you could get yourself into Q2. And now we're into these dry conditions to really show what he could do around here. But some other people to talk about, of course, Alpine. They've had a really strong result here in Q1 to get themselves into Q2. John Evans as well. We usually see him at the lower end of the field. So this would be good for him to put himself up into Q2 and really show us what he can do today.
Yeah, we just saw shots as well of Freddie Rasmussen and Josh Ido. Both actually finished on the podium here last season, with Rasmussen finishing in second place, Ido finishing in third. So they'll be hoping they can do something similar again this time as Rasmussen now climbs Eau Rouge and Radion. They look to get set here with 10 minutes and 20 to go. And now we'll see them make their way up towards Les Combes. There's quite a string of cars then in behind. No surprises there as they seek to get further track time here at Spa, but this no doubt will see them get the initial laps in place, get a read on the Delta before they then set those final laps in the dying moments of quali in order to book or stamp their ticket for Q3.
Yep, all drivers exiting the pit lane and out on track now. Lucas Blakely, one of the last drivers, but there he goes out of the pit lane and he's now on track. We're watching on board now with Freddie Rasmussen. He's the lead of this train, so he's going to be the first driver to get a lap in this Q2 session. He's got a fuel mix, we can see that, 2.09 laps of fuel. He's going to want to get that to as low as possible before starting the lap, so that he is the lightest he can possibly be around the lap time. Obviously, that's going to mean that you minimize the amount of lap time around the track because you're at your lightest. But he's also got to make sure he doesn't make a mistake in the sense that he runs out of fuel too early on the in lap, doesn't get back into the pit lane with enough time to go out for that flying lap at the end of the session. Now though, track conditions will not be improving. It is fully dry. We're in light cloud conditions, so the track won't really be getting quicker as we go on, apart from that normal track evolution that we usually see in dry qualifying sessions. But Freddie Rasmussen building up those tyre temperatures, hard on the brakes with the throttle at the same time. It's very interesting to see from Freddie's get-up as well that he doesn't like the distraction of having that OSD right in the middle of the screen. The other drivers, you can see their ERS quite comfortably. I wonder whether that's a case of personal preference or he doesn't want other drivers to see what he's doing when he's using ERS when we cut to him on board.
Yeah, you just see him as well, just working those brake temps. You just see them fluctuating up and down as such. Again, that brake heat, that brake temperature then feeds straight into the outer skin of the tyre, so therefore elevating the temperature of it, allowing for that extra grip to be utilised. You just see again that wider line as he makes his way down the long straight and commences his fast lap here with a little bit of additional track length heading down into La Source.
Brake at the 100-metre board as you head into La Source. Just clip the apex on the inside, extend as close to that sausage curve as you possibly can, then back on the throttle as you're going to go flat out all the way to Les Combes as you go downhill to Eau Rouge and then back up the hill through Radion as you go through the right and the left. Now it's full throttle as it was through that chicane anyway. DRS open, get it over to the left, set yourself up, take that breather and get ready for Les Combes. Braking just before the 50-metre board, throw it over the right, not too much on the curb, but really attack the curb on the left-hand side and again on the right. Don't extend too much on the left, and that was very nice there from Freddie Rasmussen. Use a little bit curb on the entry to maximise your turn in through the corner. Hug the apex of that corner there. Get it back over to the right, throw it down the hill on the left, and use the exit curb. I remember recent years, eSports Line used to use the AstroTurf on the outside. No sign of that there from Freddie Rasmussen. Tucks it nice and tidy through Pouon, through the first apex, and then the second. Full throttle now as they go down into this next right-left chicane. On the brakes, use the curb on the inside, get it over to the right, then flick it and use the curb on the inside once again. Be careful not to unsettle the car though. Curb on entry, down a couple of gears there as you now run through Stavelot at the end of this lap. Freddie Rasmussen full foot to the floor as they go through Blanchemont. First part of that section of corners, just hug the left, get it back over to the right, the left again, and full throttle all the way as you rise back up the hill now in towards the bus stop chicane. Hard on the brakes, really tight over the first apex and try and maximise the second corner to get that straight line speed down in towards the start-finish line. Across the line for Freddie Raston, of course, he's going to put himself at the pole because he is currently the first driver across the line. Josh Edu not able to beat him, but it's very, very close. 8,000 of a second between those two Red Bull drivers.
Yeah, virtually nothing separated, and Wilson Hughes goes immediately, well now fourth fastest as Thomas Ronha goes third. Patrick Schipos now ahead of Wilson Hughes at 1:44.81. His teammate Prejnader in behind. Jed Norgrove into fifth, separating the two Alpines. There's now Barry Burman, Tom Manley again to the top with a 1:42.19. Certainly enjoying his time here at the Spa-Francorchamps circuit. Here comes Nicolas Longuet. He goes fourth fastest. Alfie Butcher now looking to join them, goes second. The two Challengers champions up 1 and 2 until Ulash comes along, who tested Alfie Butcher for Challengers last season, gave him a bit of a headache, but wasn't able to beat him. But he goes second fastest ahead of his Haas teammate Lucas Blakely in 8th place in the top 10. Brendan Lee, the only car yet to set a lap time.
Yeah, must have been validated out on track. I'm looking over the screen right now. He's not on a secondary push lap, so he didn't save the battery to go for a second one, and it wouldn't make any sense anyway because the time lost for going for back-to-back laps means that you would not get that flying lap at the end. So Brendan Lee has got to do it all in one lap later on as we get into the final moments of this Q2 session. Great performance though so far from the Haas drivers. Both Alfie Butcher, who we know is very strong in qualifying, but also Ulas. Now, they had a great team dynamic in Austria, working together to help Alfie Butcher get that race win. Will they be working together more? Quite possibly. They're both up at the front so far. They're going to have to do it if they both get into Q3 though, because of course that's where they're fighting for their actual grid positions.
Yeah, Wilson Hughes in the bottom 5. He's got to pull out something here, Hayden, coming towards the very end. Obviously, McLaren not having it all their own way right now. I mean, albeit Lucas is in the top 10, but he's in the bottom half of that top 10. Obviously more of an issue heading through to Q3, but these are little things that you can't really allow to persist, especially when you're shooting out for pole.
Yeah, I mean, the gaps between drivers about 5-6 tenths of a second around here, and we alluded to it earlier at the in the midsection of the show that, you know, a perfect lap around here and you're going to be, you know, right up at the front end, but just one small little mistake, or if you're not quite in that flow, in that rhythm, you could be, like we are seeing, 5 to 6 tenths down. Obviously, cars are all equal in F1 sim racing. It's not like real life where Red Bull car is one of the best and you've got some of the bottom cars in there as well. All the cars are completely equal across the board. It's all down to the drivers. So those little mistakes are going to be what separates the top drivers from the guys that could potentially be knocked out here in Q2. But there's a few drivers who are currently on the cusp. Of course, Wilson Hughes, Brendan Lee, both the Alpines, but they are just on the edge as well of getting themselves into Q3 as we're watching. Tom Manley just check the sectors of all the drivers. How he can process that information so quickly, I do not know, because he's literally just flicking through them so quickly. He's getting his information and comparing them there to the other drivers. So basically see, okay, what is everyone else doing? He's currently the fastest driver in the field right now, but he's trying to see, okay, what sector am I losing a bit of lap time on? Because my lap is currently the fastest, but you know, maybe someone's found a bit more time in sector 2. And this track is very, very unique in that it has 3 different sections. You've got sector 1, which is very much about straight line speed. So you want to be going with very little aerodynamics around there. Then sector 2 is a lot of corners. So you want to ramp on the aero to get yourself through that section. But then sector 3 is all about straight line speed again. So you want to take it off. So it's just seeing, okay, they're a bit quicker there in sector 2 than us. That must mean they're running more aero than us. So they might be just trying to work that out at the moment.
Yeah, so small little intricacies. We just saw, of course, them just analysing that data heavily. I mean, I've been really impressed with Tom Manley and Jed Norgrove. AlphaTauri, the dark horses of the championship so far, given what they've managed to achieve. And no one expected the performance from Jed Norgrove. I even told him that earlier on today. And even he, I think, cannot really believe the rise that he has had. But he's embraced it with both hands. And to have a teammate as well, like Tom Manley, who are currently seeing in picture here, I mean, the team from Faenza have plenty of talent at their fingertips, and that bodes well for Red Bull, I mean, going forward for the future, because we know how much they embrace young talent.
Yep.
And to take on a Challengers champion like Tom Manley, a young upstart like Jed Norgrove, you've got an opportunity there for a very decent dynamic that can carry you through to Red Bull in the future.
Certainly, I mean, at Red Bull, they've had Freddie Rasmussen in that seat for a while, but yeah, how long can he continue up at the top in F1 sim racing? He's certainly showing that he's still got plenty left in him at the moment, of course, but you look at the young talent coming through, and they're certainly looking around to see, you know, who are those potential drivers that we can put into Red Bull for the future. Josh Edu obviously got that promotion for this season, was in the AlphaTauri team last season, and he managed to get that promotion, had had a fantastic season and of course is now lined up alongside Freddie Rasmussen. And I think he's done a really, really good job alongside Freddie Rasmussen. Freddie Rasmussen is who he is. He is, as I say, Mr. Consistency. He's always around the front end and he's always fighting, of course, for the championship. Josh, of course, in his own mind is going to want to beat him. He's going to want to be that number one driver for the team. But even for him to get close in his first season at Red Bull, to work alongside him and learn off him as well, I think this is a stellar job from Josh Ido, and I'm excited to see what he can do across the rest of this event and, of course, the rest of the season as well. So they're all getting ready for their final laps. We are definitely in dry conditions now. No worry about rain at all this time around at the end of Q2 as Thomas Ronhaar is just leading the way. Once again, the first driver in this train, but is not backing them up as much as he was last time. But for one more time, here in Q2, let's see what these drivers can do. Thomas Ronhaar setting his lap up very nicely, running it wide, and then back on the throttle, putting it into hot lap mode, and away he goes. Heading down into the first corner of La Source. On the brakes and clipping the inside corner. A little bit down as he entered the corner, but his exit was so much better. Look at him gaining time, 0.02 of a second, now rises up to 3 as he goes downhill in towards Eau Rouge, and then of course Radion. Flat out through there, no real changes on the lap time, although he was slightly slow. It's dropping just a little bit for Thomas Ronhaar. DRS now open. He's going to get the car on the left, braking just before the 50-meter board as they head into the Le Com section. Don't go too much on the curve on the right, but a lot on the left. And he's very, very similar to his lap time at the moment. Really attacked that last part of Le Com, and it gained him valuable 0.01 of a second. It's a good lap so far from Thomas Ronhaar, but he needs to find more time over the rest of this lap to put himself nearer the front of the field. Not quite yet a 10th improvement for the kick driver as they head downhill in towards Pouhon. Session is now over. Everybody looks like they've crossed the line, so we're not going to have a situation like we had with Mercedes in Q1. So everybody will be setting a lap time in this Q2 session. Thomas Ronhaar now through this right, really close there on the white line as he went through the right-hander, but a really tidy lap so far. But it's still only 1/10 improvement from Thomas Ronhaar. He needs to find more, but he is going purple through that second sector. Found a lot of time, about 1/10 of a second there through sector 2. Thomas Ronhaar is absolutely flying at the moment.
He certainly is, and he's right on the bubble of elimination. Remember, P10, bottom 5 get eliminated and will not proceed into Q3. So getting a successful run in this last gasp stage here in qualifying is absolutely essential. The Dutchman now makes his way through bus stop. He'll feather the throttle and jump back onto the power and open up the DRS as he heads up towards the line. Goes fastest with a 1:40, 1:16. That's great for the Kick F1 driver. Wilson Hughes eliminated. Can only go as high as 11th fastest. Barry Burman towards the line now. He'll try and improve. He will improve to 3rd fastest. Here comes the 2-time champ Brendan Lee from no lap set at all to trying to register a faster lap to confirm his place in the top 10. Can he do it? Yes, he can. Goes 6th fastest here with Barry Burman completing his lap. We alluded to him earlier. Lucas Blakely goes 4th fastest. Alfie Butcher back again with a sensational 1:40.094. Freddie Rasmussen can only get 7th as well. Further back, we have Patrick Sheepos just barely in the top 10. Longue moves up to 6th, now down to 7th as Josh Ido moves up to 6th. Tom Manley remaining in 3rd place. It's Alfie Butcher who goes fastest here in Q2, but some major losses as we lose Wilson Hughes and Brendan Lee. Patrick Sheepos, so unlucky. Rasmussen, very fortunate.
Very fortunate, was right on the bubble at the end there, but was just about safe. It looked like potentially Josh Ido was going to be the man to displace him, but luckily there for Freddie, he just looks as calm as ever. Looks like completely unfazed by what has happened, but a really good performance there from Alfie Butcher, but sadly, Brendan Lee, unfortunately, 2-time world champion out of Q2. It hasn't been the best of events, nor the best of seasons so far for Brendan Lee, and we know the talent that he has within him. Of course, you're not a 2-time champion for no reason. We were hoping this sort of situation going back to LAN would suit him a bit more because that's when he was, the formidable force that Brendan Lee has been. But unfortunately, 0 points scored so far for Brendan, and it looks like Claire Cottingham is lining him up for an interview at the moment. But yeah, Brendan Lee, unfortunately, hasn't had the great start to the season. Let's hear from him now.
Well, Brendan, we're not used to seeing that. It's not been like Hayden was saying, and he forgot his name. Sorry, Hayden. Like he was saying, it's not been the best start of the season for you, but actually it wasn't massively to do with you, this one.
Yeah, I think first of all, I actually want to thank the team because they've been immensely supportive and actually really, really fantastic behind the scenes. And in event 1, we lost all of our testing time on the rig, 2.5 hours compared to everyone else due to technical problems, what was not resolved for the first race. And now we lost basically all of our testing time on this event as well, what was half resolved before the race. We got a little bit of our allocation back. Before this qualifying session and before Silverstone as well, we basically swapped out two times the PC. The wheel is completely numb. It's like driving with an elastic band. I'm extremely grateful to the series because they give me a job, they give me so much things, and they gave me an opportunity to do my dream. So I do not want to talk badly on anyone because technical stuff can happen and it's a part of the sport, but I'm proud of myself, proud of the team, because I truly believe we got the most out of the situation in both Silverstone qualifying and today in Spa qualifying 1 hour and a half after Silverstone. So it's not optimal, but we have a good car for the race, we have a good ability. So right now, what I hope can happen is they change out the wheelbase, they change out the equipment that is not working as I believe it should be, and then we can go into the 2 races with 2 fists ready to fight as hard as possible.
Well, bad luck out there. Hopefully, like you say, it'll be done and dusted and ready for the racing today. Are you looking forward to the 2 races we've got?
Oh yeah, I think it's going to be a really good time. Silverstone, of course, my home track. It always produces a good spectacle. Spa is a roller coaster of elevation and emotions in many cases, and the rain can really change the race a lot there, especially with a lap being so long. 1 lap longer, 1 lap shorter will change everyone's dynamics. So I think it'll be a good time out there.
It's going to be fun. But for now, let's turn our eyes to pole position ahead of the races this afternoon.
Thank you, CC, for that. And very interesting insight, of course, to hear from Brendan Lee. Again, technical issues, as far as he's concerned, plaguing him this time. Of course, we had the issues yesterday that led to the VSC with Lucas Blakely. Obviously, they feel that they might have been dealt a tough deck in that one.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that nobody wants to see. Nobody wants it to happen to any driver or, of course, to themselves. But just like in real life, you could have an engine failure, suspension failure, something go wrong with the car. Nothing is ever going to be perfect. There's always going to be that situation that sometimes a bit of equipment could let you down. But, of course, you know, it's our job to try and reduce that as much as possible. And I think they do a great job of that because, you know, we've not had as many as we could have had you know, throughout other series, of course. So Brendan Lee, unfortunate there in this Q2 session to be knocked out. We'll be looking to bounce back, of course, and who knows, if they replace that wheelbase and it was working fine for him, imagine you just see him up at the top. It could be all down to the wheelbase, or is it all down to his ability? He's giving me a smile right now. He says no. He says, watch out, he's coming for me. He's gonna come and get me. As we're watching on board, Tom Manley, very, very strong performance. And I've been really impressed by Tom Manley and the AlphaTauri drivers that, you know, we've seen Jed Norgrove, we've seen great displays from him, but Tom Manley as well has had a really, really strong performance here at Spa.
Yeah, dark horses for sure. Tom Manley, I mean, like I said, they pride themselves on youth, the team from Faenza, potentially supplying Red Bull future drivers at the end of the day. So you never know, we could be seeing Tom Manley maybe alongside Rasmussen, maybe alongside Ido, who knows where the picture will end up. We never know, it could vastly change from here to next season, maybe even the season after. So now seeing Manley head up through towards Lecom, right and left, before he then curtails through Malmedy, and then you take the steep dive down to Rivage.
Yep, track temperature up at the moment, 26 degrees out there. I believe it's like 20 at the start of the session, of course, with those rainy conditions. But Tom Manley looking very strong at the moment in this qualifying session. Of course, they have a lot of new tyres to them. They only did 2 runs in that last Q2 session, meaning that they have, of course, they get anyway in Q3. You get a brand new set of tyres gifted to you, but they would have had another new set of soft tyres given to them. So they will get another, hopefully, 2 runs as long as the time provides it. But they want to get a move on straight away so that they can get those 2 runs in. Tom Manley absolutely flying at the moment as he gets to the latter stages of the lap. And yeah, really proving to that Red Bull team that if there is a potential opening, that he is ready, or Jed Norgrove is ready. Although for me, I feel like Josh Ido is doing a good job alongside Freddie Rasmussen, that there's no doubt. Last season, you know, Marcel Kiefer was massively off the pace of Freddie Rasmussen, so it was obvious that they were looking to try and find a replacement there for him. But yeah, I think they've got some 4 really strong drivers that are currently racing at the moment for the Red Bull family. And Tom Manley, is he going to prove us right once again? Coming around the final corner, across the line, and it is a 1:40.0. Definitely some stronger lap times to come later on this session for sure, as we're watching Josh Ido go across the line and beats him. It's also a 40.0, so very, very close between them. And of course, that's what you're going to be wanting to do in the AlphaTauri team. Match those 2 Red Bulls as much as possible, or if you can, beat them.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what it's all about, trying to prove yourself to be a talent for the future. Alfie Butcher proving that as well in an abundance. As now the Haas driver goes to the top once again, this time like he did in Q2 in sensational style. Can his teammate join him? Not quite. 4th fastest for Ulas Yildirim. Nicholas Longe in 5th. Barry Burremand, can he beat his teammate as he heads up towards the line? No, he can't. Does even enlist a time. I think he might have invalidated. Thomas Ronha goes fastest and breaks into the 1:39s with a 39.966. John Evans coming up towards the line. Freddie Rasmussen invalidated as well, so he won't be laying down a time, and John Evans invalidating too. So we have got Lucas Blakely coming into the final sector. It's all down to him as he makes his way through Blanchimont to register his first lap.
Let's see what Lucas Blakely can do. The reigning F1 sim racing world champion into the final corner now, and instead we're going to be watching on board with John Evans. A little bit disappointment, of course, because he invalidated that lap time. But, you know, John Evans quietly getting into Q3 there. Lucas Blakely putting up at the front, a 39.9, matching Thomas Ronha. Well, about 200ths of a second off, but that's close enough to be matching for the time being between those two. But yeah, John Evans quietly got himself into Q3. We've not really mentioned him too much. Of course, you know, benefited from the mistakes from Mercedes and Fassi and the Williams team in Q1. Got himself into Q2, was right on the cusp. Nearly lost out there, but of course now into Q3 and is looking for a solid position. And of course, you put yourself in that top 10, it gives you the best chance of scoring points later on in the race.
Yeah, I think that's their first Q3 performance since Donoso back at Jeddah. So a great display from John Evans. Did fly under the radar, that's for sure. But nonetheless, a successful venture around the circuit of Spa. Here for them, and I'm sure he'll be looking to try and land a faster time to maybe even strike it in position on those ahead of him. Barry Burremand and Freddie Rasmussen at the same time not enlisting a time at all, invalidating around this circuit. It just goes to show how easy it is to get it oh so wrong around a circuit like Spa.
Yeah, there's so many places. I'd love to see a replay of where potentially they got it wrong, because Le Comte that I spoke about earlier, and we see how close they are pushing it to that white line, because you want to really cut that corner as much as possible, but also try and get away with it as much as you possibly can, because if you don't, you invalidate and you're there. And it's also going to not benefit you for that second lap, because one, you're pushing a lot harder because you've only got 1 lap to go for it, but you've also not got a delta really that you can compare your lap time up against. So it's going to be difficult here for John Evans, but I think a solid qualifying performance from himself. To get himself into the top 10, I think he should be happy with that for sure. And I'm interested to see how much further he can go up the field. Of course, no drivers out on track at the moment. Everybody taking those seats. Although we have got Lucas Blakely, but he's going to be just finding his way back into the pit lane to get ready for some final runs. 4.5 minutes left on the clock at the moment. We're going to probably be getting drivers out around the 2:30 mark is probably the latest you want to be getting out there. Any later than that and you could be running the risk of trouble, because you need that time to build up the tyre temps. Of course, yes, we are in the 1:40s, but you need that time to build up your tyre temps to make sure you are fully prepared going into that qualifying lap. All it takes is a few little temperatures here or there that you're either over or under, and you're going to really upset the car. Freddie Rasmussen, though, he's going early. 4 minutes left on the clock. He's out on track at the moment, as are a few of the other drivers starting to peel their way out and just, I guess, give themselves a little bit of space to make sure that there's no distractions out on track.
Yeah, absolutely right. Thomas Ronha, though, currently at the head of the field as the drivers get set for their final laps. We've got 3 minutes and 40 left to go in the session, so a perfect time to get the cars prepared, make sure tyres are up to temperature. Can Tom Manley do the unthinkable? We saw what he's capable of. Certainly his time at Silverstone was brilliant. He could yet do something sensational around Spa. Alluding back to Thomas Ronha, 3 times a race winner has not won, of course, since Bahrain at round 1 this season, but 8 times a podium sitter to boot, signing with Haas last season for his debut season in F1 sim racing, and finished 16 points behind the eventual champion Lucas Blakely in our previous campaign, finishing 3rd in behind Frederick Rasmussen, who is also in the session, about to set his first lap of the session as well. well, seeing as he invalidated that first run. Tom Manley, though, just slowing the car down, heading through Qual. You can see the energy light flashing on the rear. That is because he's trying to conserve the energy here on this outlap. No need to use it whatsoever. It's all about the fast lap. Conserve everything you've got for one last chance to dance here in Spa qualifying.
It really is crunch time. This is where we find out who will be starting our race later at the Spa-Francorchamps circuit from pole position and who is going to be awarded that extra point for it as well. Tom Manley is one of the first drivers in this train. There's a couple of cars right behind him. I believe that's a Mercedes and potentially his Red Bull of Freddie Rasmussen, who is right on his tail, but he's going to be leading the pack. He's got fresh air in front of him, no distractions at all, and as you can see, building up those tyre temps on the brakes as he's going to be getting right into this final corner now. Tom Manley, very, very strong so far in his qualifying session. Currently sits P5 though. He'll be looking to put himself further up the field. We'll maximise the start-finish straight on the throttle, and we'll get this lap underway. DRS open, onto hot lap mode, and away he goes. Heading down into the first corner on the brakes of the 100-metre board. Kiss the apex on the inside of La Source, extend on all of the curve on the outside and back on the throttle. Matching his delta time at the moment is flicking between red and green, which means he's pretty much equal with what he's done so far through the first corner last time around, through Eau Rouge and Radion, as he rises up the hill all the way down the Kemmel Straight. And again, still matching on that delta, maybe just slightly down by 100th or a couple of thousandths of a second. Braking at the 50-metre board, throw it in through the right, really cut the corner on the left, doesn't invalidate. That was very close there from Tom Manley, but almost perfection. He's up on his lap time at the moment by a couple of hundredths of a second through this long corner. He's on the power slightly. It was down through the first sector on his delta, but he's managed to gain that time back up. Half a tenth at the moment for Tom Manley. The other drivers following him looking good on their deltas as well. Tom Manley now through P1 as he runs down the hill in towards this tricky chicane section. On the curb slightly on the entry, really uses the right hand side and then again on the left. Nice and tidy on the exit, down on the brakes once again through the right hander, and will extend on the outside through Stablo. Purple through sector 2. Things are looking good for Tom Manley, nearly a tenth up on his lap time, and that'll be enough to put him right up at the front unless anybody else is improving. But can he do it?
Well, it's crunch time now. Blanchimont coming up. Can he convert that purple second sector into a purple lap? The first sector might have been a little bit trepidatious. You can just see from the engineers, faces covered as they watch him, well, pirouette his way out of the bus stop chicane. Can the AlphaTauri ascend? He goes second fastest. Thomas Ronhaar retaining first place, at least for now. Freddie Rasmussen remains in second place. Thomas Ronhaar furthers his plaudits, furthers his time at 39.870. Josh Edo, can he join him? No, fourth fastest for him. The two prancing horses. First up, Nicolas Longuet coming through Blanchimont this time around. Eighth fastest, the 40.334. Remember, Barry hasn't even enlisted a time yet that's valid. As then we see Longuet come through bus stop now. Back on the throttle, back on the power, up towards the line. Can Longuet disrupt the order? No, sixth fastest. Teammate Barry Burmand goes fastest. The rapidly fast Iranian with a 39.830. John Evans goes 8th. We still haven't seen Butcher or as Yildirim, two Haas drivers in 9th and 10th. Can they do the unimaginable? Can Butcher ascend again, much like he did yesterday in racing action? No, he can't. 9th fastest for Alfie Butcher. Ulas Yildirim remains 10th, but there's still more drivers still to come as Lucas Blakely comes through bus stop.
Yeah, Lucas Blakely looking over his screen. Looks like he's down on his lap time, so I'm not too sure whether it's going to be improved. But look at the talent from the Red Bull team. You've got Freddie Rasmussen, Tom Manley, Josh Edo, all separated by 3 thousandths of a second. Tom Manley and Josh Edo said at exactly the same time. Lucas Blakely will come across the line. It doesn't look like it's going to be improvement for him. It's P6 on the board for Lucas Blakely there. But what a drive from Barry Burman. What a lap to put himself on pole position and to take that extra point. Fantastic stuff there. I was watching Tom Manley in the bottom corner. He wasn't happy with his final corner. He was looking very strong on his lap. I don't think it would have been enough for pole because he lost maybe about 300ths of a second there, but definitely would have been enough to jump Freddie Rasmussen for sure and put himself as one of the top Red Bull family drivers there. But Barry very, very happy with this lap at the moment. He wants to get straight out of his chair and celebrate with his team, but fantastic drive. They were celebrating at the start of qualifying when they saw the weather, and it looks like they were right to do so. They knew what they were doing.
Yeah, I mean, Barry Burman has every right to be delighted, and Spa certainly seems to be his ground, because it's hallowed ground for him. His first and only victory coming at this track last season, and he's just gone to pole position, and he could yet allow lightning to strike twice. The question is, will it be the Iranian who crosses the line first when we go racing here this afternoon? I'm sure we'll find out very, very soon. But it's Ferrari on top once again in Formula One in the Sim Racing World Championship, with Barry Burman as their chieftain, their mascot, their messiah, their masseuse up at the top.
Yeah, he's going to be very happy with that, getting the extra point there for the Ferrari team for pole position as well. Strong performance from them. Thomas Ronhard, though, very strong performance from him too, bouncing back from that disappointing qualifying session in Silverstone where he got knocked out in Q2. Didn't quite make it into the top 10, but this time around, he is P2 and, of course, is our championship leader. Missed consistency, Freddie Rasmussen right up there. Third position for him. And Claire Cottingham is going to speak to our pole position driver, Barry Burman.
Well, Barry, this is exactly what you wanted. You kept talking about it all weekend. Yesterday, you had 2 second places. Now you're on pole position. You must be so pleased with yourself.
Yeah, first of all, I want to say that was really good. And yesterday, after what happened in the races, I'm going to say it, like I was fully broken. Like in my room, I was just couldn't speak. I had a little bit of cry as well because yesterday was really bad. Like P2 in quali, and the races every time just something went wrong, damage. In the first one, it was really bad. Like, but yeah, today I spoke to my dad last night. I spoke to him. He said like go and do these races for me. And I'm super happy with the pole. Like it's been long since I didn't get the pole. I'm so happy with it.
Talk to me through the dedication then on that pole lap. Obviously, we saw the times changing. We've had changing conditions out there as well throughout this whole qualifying session. Just talk me through that pole lap. What was that concentration like?
Oh my God, it was crazy because turn 1 is really tricky and I got it right. And I just saw my data, I was like, yes, this is the lap. But I pushed through all the laps. I knew I have the confidence. I knew I had to drive with confidence. And I drove and it paid off. I'm super happy, but for now, after what happened yesterday in the races, I just don't want to say anything. I just want to focus on the races for now, speak to the team, and let's see what we can do.
That's the thing, isn't it? Yeah, pole position is the first step, but winning is the next step. How confident are you in a track like Spa-Francorchamps?
Yeah, I mean, I won it last year, so I'm really looking forward to it. Even the first one, I'm really looking forward to it. In Silvo, the quali was really tricky, and it was really hard to put the lap. So I'm still happy. P6 for the first one is not bad in Silvo because you can just overtake, and of course, pole in Spa was made it perfect.
But first, you got to get through Silverstone. I know that feels like a long time away, but it's not. It's just around the corner now. Is that a track you're feeling confident around?
Yeah, I think it should be fine, but of course in Silverstone I think going to be lots of strategies and everything going on. I just want to maybe speak to the team, let's see what we should do, and so maybe I can get like little bit gain places, and I think let's see what will happen.
Do you think yesterday actually gave you this fire under your belly, speaking to your dad and really going, this is it now? And once you saw yourself round that first corner, you were like, nah, we got it, we're in.
To be fair, I knew the preparation and everything is really good for this event. And to be honest, last night I was literally, I would not say it that way because I was really like, I didn't have energy. I just went straight to bed. Yeah, it was really bad. But now today, yeah, I did it for my dad.
Are you going to ring him immediately?
Yeah, definitely I will. Yeah.
Well, hopefully you're going to ring him later with a win. Thank you so much. Back to you guys.
Huge congratulations to Barry there. Wow, that was exciting, I have to say. We had the wet conditions for Silverstone, and then we had stormy conditions for Spa. 2 tracks, obviously, we're very used to having wet and rain. But that was an exciting one, wasn't it? And Barry ultimately taking that pole position.
Yeah, strong drive from him. I'm interested to see whether we're going to get some more wet conditions later on with our races. But yeah, very strong performance for him. And he's been showing that, I suppose, across most of the event so far. He's been always up at the front run in these qualifying sessions, so he's been driving fantastically. But he said it himself, the race is, of course, where the points are won. He just needs to make sure he keeps it clean, doesn't get into any trouble. Obviously, it's unfortunate what's happened to him. He had that little mistake in the pit lane, a bit of front wing damage, and that cost him massively in Jeddah. But just make sure that he keeps it nice and tidy and brings home the points later on.
That's what it's all about. George, I think we have the provisional starting grid. Do you want to just talk us through it?
Yeah, I certainly can. Let's take you through the starting grid here for Spa. It's Will Lewis, who starts from P20. Simon Weigang in 19th spot for the Aston Martin lineup. Daniel Berejnay starts 18th, and Jarno Opmeer starting 17th after the disaster for Mercedes that led to them being eliminated at a very early stage of qualifying here this afternoon. Ismail Fassi, same for he. 16th fastest. We wouldn't expect to see him there, though. Alpine ascending with Philip Prejneda in 15th spot. In 14th is Wilson Hughes and McLaren, with Jed Norgrove in 13th for AlphaTauri. 12th place going to Brendan Lee, who qualifies just behind Patrick Schipos, both of them sharing the same row. Patrick Schipos with his strongest qualifying here so far this campaign. Ulas Yildirim in the top 10, 10th place with Alfie Butcher, his teammate, in 9th as well. Moving on up, we look at 8th fastest, John Evans with a career best qualifying session in 8th for Aston Martin. Nicolas Longuet in 7th for Ferrari. Up in 6th, Lucas Blakely will be alongside Josh Edo, representing Red Bull Racing, starting P5. Tom Manley once again excelling in P4 for AlphaTauri. Frederick Rasmussen joining him on the second row of the grid in 3rd place. With the front row, Thomas Ronhart in 2nd, with Barry Burrowmand once again showing that lightning may strike twice here at Spa.
Thank you very much. We have a very exciting couple of races coming up for us. A couple of other talking points that I want to get into. Haas, both cars in the top 10. That's a good showing from them.
Yeah, we've seen strong performances from Alfie Butcher so far this season. Ulas, maybe not quite as good as his teammate in qualifying, but has showed some good race performances. And of course, they worked together yesterday in Spielberg. But to have them both up at the front and fighting potentially for some good points later on, it's going to be something that Haas are going to be wanting. Of course, that race win yesterday, excelling them up the order in the constructors' standings, and hopefully they can bring a little bit more home for them.
And another name that we heard a lot through that qualifying session, Tom Manley. He was putting in some laps through both that qualifying and qualifying for Silverstone. He seems like he's on fire today.
Yeah, coming into his own. I was really impressed with him in Q2 back at Silverstone, taking the fastest time to boot. And you've got to remember, this is a reminder, I think, that many people might forget at home. It's the fact that he is the F1 Esports Challengers champion on the Xbox platform, which goes a little bit under the radar, but since then proven that he does deserve a place here at the, should we say, the highest level of sim racing. I mean, being here in F1 sim racing here with AlphaTauri, potential Red Bull seat in the future, perhaps, or he might look further afield, but nevertheless, he's doing wonders for AlphaTauri right now.
He absolutely is. And final point, Mercedes. That was an unfortunate fall from Grace for them. Of course, so strong in Silverstone, and then just complete miscalculation there.
Well, we talked about it at the start of the show, or in between, that you have these two races so close together, these two qualifying sessions so close together, and they quite like sort of getting back into session. So it's just the difference between the end of that one and only the first session of the next one that they're both sat there speechless, completely massively disappointed. And they must have just missed it by a couple, like 10, 20 seconds, if that. But, you know, behind the scenes, they're definitely going to have those discussions to be like, okay, what went wrong and how do we fix it for the future? We're just looking through the data and make sure that they have all their preparation next time around, so they know exactly how long it will take for them to get out of the pit lane to start a hot lap.
Yeah, so disappointing. And of course, just frustration. We saw from both the drivers how frustrated they were looking when they saw that. Really starting down the order for that race. What do you think they can do, if anything, from that sort of position?
Well, ironically, this is one of those situations where Jarno generally excels. And it has to be said, Danny's very experienced alike as well. So really, if there's one team you'd factor that would probably bounce back in this scenario, it would be Mercedes. But it doesn't really change the fact that they should have been in Q3, really. And someone as talented as Jarno, it goes without saying, two-time champion, we say it time and time again, he should be in the battle for pole position. But yeah, a very rare mistake, rare blunder. Same can be said for Williams. Mercedes weren't alone.
Exactly that. Gosh, can't get my words out. Well, that brings us to the end of our 2 qualifyings. That is it, done and dusted. When we return, of course, it will be for the races, and we absolutely can't wait. You can see and hear the buzz here in the studio. There is a lot to play for. We have very different looking grids across the 2 races, 2 very different tracks, and I'm sure that they're going to deliver us plenty of action. So make sure you join us. We'll be back from 5 p.m. to get racing in Silverstone and Spa. Guys, thank you so much for taking us through commentary. Claire, thank you very much as well for getting us all those interviews. And thank you for joining us at home. We'll be back with you very shortly.